Hi, I'm Paul Foot. Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Paul, welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. How are you today?
Oh, very well, thanks, Sarah. Yes, it's lovely. Yes.
Well, I'm really excited to talk to you about your amazing career and celebrate all the cool stuff you've been doing. But first of all, I noticed that your birthday is not only one day after, but also 7 years before mine.
Yes, that means that you were born on the 23rd of December.
I was.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? I
It,
mean, it's an incredible coincidence.
it's ridiculous. And you know what it means? It means we can have joint parties.
Yeah, except for the 7 year difference, of course.
Yeah, mine will be 7 years delayed. It'll be fine. We'll
Yeah, but
work
it
it out.
would be, there'd be people at mine who are, on average, my will be 7 years older than your one.
No, because I mostly know you now, so we should even out.
Oh, you mean you're going to just come to my party and just
Yeah, I
with
just
all my
thought
friends there?
that would save me a lot of hassle,
Yeah, so you want to just have a combined party, and
basically.
you want me to pretend I'm the same age as you, so we can combine it completely and say we're both 45 or something.
We can share a badge.
Oh, no, yes, that's a good idea.
I think so. I'll have it Tuesdays and Thursdays or something.
And then I won't wear it.
Yeah, well, not on those days. It'd be tricky.
No, no, I wouldn't. No, not the same days you're wearing it, or any day actually, because the whole thing's a fraud.
Well, badges, don't believe in them,
Well, I don't believe in badges. No, I don't think they're real. But also,
but they believe in you.
do they? Oh,
Yeah.
but yeah, also, it's a deception, isn't it? It's, you're bringing all your friends to my party.
Mm,
I mean, you're coming to my party with all my friends,
yeah.
pretending that you know them and you don't.
Well, I might. There might be a massive amount of crossover.
Oh, you think there is?
Yeah, I'd assume so. Yeah.
I thought you didn't have any friends. I got the impression you were just pretending that, yeah, okay, okay.
I've been holding off for this. I've refused to make acquaintances up until this point.
Oh, well, in that case, yes, okay, yeah, that's fine.
Brilliant, perfect. That's all my questions. Birthday, no, I'm joking. So you are, of course, a comedian, but can you tell me what you aspired to be when you were growing up?
I don't think well, when I was very young, I wanted to be an astronaut. And I also wanted to be an ambulance driver. And my idea was there was a girl at school I liked, and the idea that we were going to be ambulance drivers together, and we would live in the ambulance, like we'd use it as be like part ambulance and part sort of camper van situation.
It makes sense. It's got a bed.
It's got a bed, yes.
Yeah.
We could take it in turns who's sleeping and who's the one just observing the other person, checking their blood pressure
Yeah.
and pulse and all that stuff. And then I thought I'd be a rocket designer. I was designing rockets that would go into space. They didn't. I wasn't really designing rockets that would go into space because I hadn't actually worked out the physics of how they'd go in there. I was just really designing the shape that I thought would look a good shape for to go into space. And then I'd be an astronaut. And then I decided. Then that was when I was before the age of about 10. Then after that, I thought, actually, I didn't have any ambitions then. When I was just then from the ages of about 8 to 18, no ambition, just I'm a child learning things with no particular view of what I should do. And then I thought, when I went to university, because I was studying maths, I thought I'd become an accountant or an actuary.
Mm.
And then that was until I did my first ever performance. Then I decided to become a comedian. And then that's what I've wanted to do ever since deciding to become it, as well as doing it. So that's all my ambitions in my whole life,
All of them.
from my earliest memories until now.
Well, yeah, when you've come on my show.
Yes, and then of course the ambition to come on your show, of course.
This is what this show is. It's making people's dreams come true. And I heard that this was one of yours. I had this ambition to have like a joint birthday party, and I just thought we can combine the two. So you studied
Yes.
maths and all that kind of thing. Have you got a favourite number? Because I was trying to think of mine, and I think it's probably the number for Domino's Pizza.
That's a good number. I think my favourite numbers are the transcendental numbers.
That
I
makes
like
sense.
the name.
It's good.
Pi and E are both transcendental numbers.
And partly delicious.
Yeah, that pi is delicious. Yeah, so I like transcendental numbers because they're irrational numbers, but they can't be expressed as a polynomial equation. I like them.
Yeah, I like that about them too.
They're very difficult to really put your finger on what they are. They're very difficult to work out what it, like even pi. They don't. We know. I like things like that because it's so beautiful. It's based on a circle. It's based on the most simple thing, and yet no one actually knows exactly what pi is. Well, they do really,
but it goes on forever, right? There's no end to pi. You
goes
can
on
keep
forever.
calculating. Yeah.
And I think it just keeps changing. I think they've proven it keeps changing. So, if you can have, if you decided like the phone number for Domino's Pizza, which you say you like, if you looked at all the digits of pi, you would find the phone numbers of Domino's Pizza at some stage in all those numbers.
Well, that's why in America they call it a pizza pie.
Well, that would be why then.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
So, do you remember your first ever time on stage and performing and what that was like?
Yes, I remember I was at university doing it, and it was only ever going to be my first. It was just going to be a one-off gig. I was never going to do any others, but I just thought I'd perform one time. And yes, I remember because they were every 2 weeks. I had performances at the university, and in this student union place. And I had lots of my friends at university to come to watch me, and I'd already delayed by 2 weeks because I said I was going to do a particular date, and then sort of chickened out and said, "Oh well, actually, I need to do more preparations. I'm doing it in 2 weeks," and then so I'd already done that, and they'd all come to watch me. And I remember before I was introduced, I was so nervous. I've never been more nervous before or since that moment. I was so nervous. I thought my heart was going to stop. I was just like unbelievable level of nerves. And then I thought, I can't pull out. I wanted to pull out. I was desperate not to do it. But then I thought, I can't because I've already delayed by 2 weeks. And if I do it again, no one will come. They'll all just say, for God's sake, keep doing this. And so I thought, I've got to go on. And I remember I don't think I was even introduced by my full name, just introduced as Paul. I just thought, I'll just call myself Paul because it's a one-off performance. I don't want anyone to know who I am. And then I remember being introduced and then doing the show. But I don't really remember doing the show. Well, I can, sort of, because I've heard a recording of it. So I vaguely remember it, but that's more of like a reconstructed memory when it's really a memory constructed from the fact I've heard the recording. But I can remember that moment before going on and feel so nervous.
It's amazing that you got on stage and obviously kept getting on stage afterwards. I think that's the biggest thing. It probably stops a lot of people, doesn't it? That first step.
I think it is. And I meet people often and they say, "Oh, I want to do comedy. And what's your advice?" I say, "Well, just go and do it. Do that first performance. Because after you've done that first performance, nothing is ever going to be as nerve-wracking as that again." But they often, sometimes they do it. But a lot of people, they talk about it, then they never actually do it. And they just go on and on. And I see them, maybe a few months later, "I still haven't done my first performance, but I hope to soon," and all this. And I think, well, just get on with it. I've always been a doing person. I always do things. So I always find it, I don't understand people who don't do things. I just think, do it.
And that's why you built a space ambulance.
Yeah, that's why I built that, yes. Well, That's why I invented it. I didn't actually build it because it was totally impractical.
Yeah. Well, you did the difficult thing anyway.
I did the difficult thing, which was to invent the concept of it.
Yeah, they often don't get the look right, which is a big problem for me.
What, of a space ambulance?
Yeah.
Of course, you can have the shape once you're in space and you're in orbit, or just anywhere in space, you can be any shape, really, can't you? Because you don't have to be aerodynamic. Because once you're in space, you can just be like the International Space Station, which is technically flying because it's still just in the upper reaches of the atmosphere. But
it's falling constantly, isn't it?
It's what?
It's falling at the same speed Earth's rotating, so it keeps in the same place. It's not hovering there as people think. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's in free fall. It's falling towards the center of the Earth, but it happens to be going round and round. But there's virtually no atmosphere there. So, but if you look at the shape of it, it's just like you couldn't have that in the atmosphere because it would be the worst aerodynamics if there was a lot of air going past it, and it would all just break into bits.
Yeah.
There's no strength to it, and there's just great big panels on it. So you could put that into space and you could fire it out at hundreds of thousands of miles an hour just through space, and it wouldn't have to be aerodynamic.
Exactly. But on Earth, you couldn't get it under a bridge, could you?
Couldn't get it under a bridge, and you couldn't get it to go fast because there would be so much
resistance
resistance on it. You know, a little bit like a Skoda car, really, or something like that.
Yeah, similar design that built for space.
But yeah, I've got a Skoda car that I drive. It's not massively aerodynamic. It's not like a Ferrari, but yeah, in space it would go at amazing speed.
Well, it would, yeah. You'd barely see it.
Well, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. Not if it was in orbit, going at 20,000 miles per hour or whatever they do.
Well, I look forward to seeing that one day.
Yes.
If you go up a ramp a bit too fast or something.
Yes.
Now, I want to talk to you about the year 2000. You entered a talent contest at Winkies nightclub, sang Ella Fitzgerald-inspired songs for a TV show called RDA. But my question to you is this. Have you ever considered releasing an album?
Well, the answer, not really. I mean, I don't think, not seriously, but I did do that. It was like I just had the idea, and that's why I did this TV show. It would be good to enter a talent contest, and they filmed me under the pretext that I was this great talent. And then there was this, and then they were interviewing everyone because obviously no one else was being filmed, but I was, because we were doing the TV show. And so they were interviewing the other contestants and all the audience, and saying yes. And then I liked the idea of entering the talent contest, and then when I actually sang, I wasn't so bad that it was just obviously a joke, but then it wasn't good enough to in any way justify doing it. So I just like the idea of that sort of muddle of like, what's going on? Is this a joke? Is it not a joke? And then I like the idea of coming on stage all confidently, thinking I'd won when I obviously hadn't, but just delusionally thinking I'd won, and then when they announced I hadn't, I just got really upset. I like that idea. It was quite a long time ago when I made that for the TV. I think, like a lot of things that were done 23 years ago or however long ago it was, there were nice ideas, but sometimes the execution wasn't quite there. I don't think when you watch it, I didn't quite pull off what I'd hoped to do.
Well, anyway. I enjoyed watching it. And it's good that you had the space to explore ideas like that as well. And actually, it's nice to see people outside of a studio environment. So I'm actually filming this on the beach at the moment. It was a nightmare to set up.
You're on the beach now?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, well, the heating's up anyway.
Yes, you're in like a beach hut.
Pretty much. It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very nice, yeah.
We should have brought a second person to bring that sofa with me, really. It was knackering.
Oh, I assumed it was... it wasn't the real sofa, sitting off one.
Yeah, well, it could be. It's really bloody detailed if it is.
It's that would be a good picture.
Yeah,
they paint that.
They use potentially too much paint because it's quite thick.
Not many artists paint sofas.
They don't.
They're always painting landscapes or and canvas. Portraits of people.
Yeah.
but they very rarely paint sofas.
It's difficult. It's one of the things that artists struggle with, like a close up of a hand or a leather boot or something. A sofa is up there with those things.
Yes, I think they should paint them more. And also, like I was it was actually at the airport at Bandar Seri Begawan, which I think is the best named place in the whole world.
It's really good.
And I was at Bandar Seri Begawan and at the airport, and then they had a picture there of a Royal Brunei plane, like with all like the shiny engines and all like that silvery color of the wings and all that. But it was an oil painting. It showed like incredible skill to do an actual oil painting, and it looked, because that's obviously why they originally had that kind of oil painting. It was because there was no photography, so you had to capture what something looked like or what a person looked like.
Yeah.
So amazing skill to be able to capture what a person looks like it's a photograph. And this was the same. It was a photograph of a plane, but it was an oil painting. I found that fascinating. It's not that many people with those skills anymore to do those things.
Absolutely. I always love it because I like art and I studied it at college and university and things, but I often, if I'm doing a landscape, I'll take a photo, then I'll come home and paint it. But I love the idea of actually going into a field and just sitting there one day and capturing whatever you're doing. You won't necessarily get all the detail you would if you spent weeks working on it, but it's just a different kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I like art. I do art as well.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating.
What's your favorite kind to do?
Any kind of art, really. I like doing portrait. I like doing abstract. I like doing pictures of dragons and monsters. I like do inventions. I've doing a lot of inventions recently, like anything that can like involve, like like I made machines where you can like fart into them and it travels by fart power, like a fart powered helicopter.
Yeah.
And I did one where you piss and shit into, like you're sitting on like a chair and you piss and shit into it.
I do that, yeah.
And then the shit and piss come out, and then and like the shit is burnt in like a chamber, and then it creates propulsion. So you can like you can shit and use the energy of your shits to like fly through the air, or like I made a picture that was you vomited into this thing and it used the power of the vomit to make you go across like an ocean, like a vomit powered ship. I like inventing things like that.
That's actually a really good idea because on the ocean, sometimes you want to vomit quite a lot. So you've got an unlimited source of power there, haven't you?
Yes, that's what I thought. I just thought harness the power of the shit and the vom.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like inventing machines like that.
I think I found out why your space rocket doesn't work yet.
Why?
Because you've shit all in it.
Because there's all shit inside it. Yes, well, of course, my space rocket, it would burn the shit up and then blast it out to provide propulsion.
Yeah,
but you've got to be careful in space, haven't you? Because once you're like in orbit or something, or far away from the Earth, you can't afford to let stuff out. That's why all the piss and everything from like the International Space Station, it all has to be recycled because you need that liquid.
Mm.
And I think even the shits, like if you do a shit in the International Space Station, it's like they take all the water out of it and all the water is recycled.
Yeah,
and
it's lovely.
The actual shit itself, they don't get rid of it. They have to keep it. For a start, if you were to release a shit, then you'd then have a shit that was going around the Earth at 20,000 miles an hour, and it could kill like it could damage another space
satellite,
like a satellite or something. So a shit at that speed would be very dangerous. So I think they have to keep the shits and then take them back to the Earth.
Yeah, well, yeah, the museums need them, and also it'd be a nightmare to try and catch it, wouldn't it? Going around at 20,000 miles an hour, it's not going to do you that much good, is it?
No, it wouldn't. No. So yeah, it's a difficult business. Anything to do with shit in space has to be thought through very carefully. That's why when you go to the toilet and in space, you have to because you're not up or down, are you? So you have to like sit on a thing and like a vacuum has to, like a pump has to suck it out after you've done your shit, so that it doesn't just like float all over the place.
Yeah, you'd be dodging it relentlessly, wouldn't you?
Yeah, so I think if I had time for a second career, or one day if I was no longer a comedian, I'd like to specialize in shitting in space, anything to do with that.
I think that's a good idea. I think as long as the waste products went towards the sun or something, might be okay. But if you just left it where it was, it'd be a problem. But the amount of energy that would be required to probably take that to the sun would be a waste, I think.
It would be a massive amount of energy to get even one shit to get it 93 million miles towards the sun would be a lot of energy.
It would.
It would be, but it would be one of the great achievements of mankind if they said, look, we've got a shit, we've taken a shit, and it's gone to the sun.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what the newspapers are like, isn't it? So,
and imagine if you were like doing a shit and then, but you knew this was no ordinary shit. This shit had been selected by mankind.
Wow.
In fact, they really ought to, they have these time capsules and stuff that they fire into space, and it has like a recording of Beethoven on it and all this sort of stuff. But they really ought to put a shit in it as well.
Well, they should.
So that people know, what, we need to tell aliens what's going on the Earth. They'd be interested to see a shit.
I think they would. I think they'd be interested in it. And it'd be the first thing made of person to travel that far in space.
Yeah, so I would like to volunteer to do a shit and have it sent into space.
Okay, well, I'll fill in the paperwork for you and we'll get that sorted.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. There's probably a form for it somewhere, I imagine.
There's always a form for everything.
There is. So speaking of which, can you tell me a bit about your writing process? Do you like to schedule time every day to do it? Do you carry around a notebook or write on your phone? Or do you like to work things out actually on stage?
It's a mixture of all those things. I write with Aaron, my writing partner, and it's not difficult. I don't schedule in time. I'm not like that. I've never been one of those sort of people. And I don't really need to schedule in time because it's kind of my hobby. I just love doing it. Yeah. I love writing. It took me a long time when I first started at comedy. I loved the performance side, but I didn't enjoy the writing. I found it difficult, but now I love it. And I think writing with someone else makes me enjoy it more because it makes it fun. We can discuss things together.
Yeah.
We sometimes go away on trips to various places in the world, nice warm places usually, with a glass of wine, sitting on a beach, coming up with ideas. It makes it fun.
Yeah.
And so it sort of takes over me, writing. It's not something that it's not something I do in it. It's the opposite of some sort of, I know some people who do it like as a 9-to-5 thing. It's just like treat it as a job. Yeah. It's like the opposite is for me. I just do it when I have time, when there's a moment. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night with ideas. It kind of consumes me. So if I'm working on a show, at the moment I'm working on my new show. I just did the first ever performance last night, and now I'm working on how to improve it and develop it for the second performance.
Brilliant.
And so, but I was just really, really tired just now before doing this because I've been doing things all day. And so I just like went and just had like a nap. But while I was having the nap, I was like in and out of dreams about the show, and like it just consumes me. I don't need to be enthused. I love writing. I love creating, and I love the challenge I love all the aspects of it. And I write on stage. There's a lot of writing on stage, performing, and then listening to what I've said, and because new lines come up.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, at the moment with the show, it's a really good and promising and powerful and exciting show, my new show. It's also very long. It was much too long last night. So I quite enjoy that part of the writing process, the red pen. No, get rid of that bit. This bit's better than that. shorten that. I like that. I like that editing sort of mode as well.
Yeah,
I like
kind
all
of
the aspects of it.
kind of like sculpting, isn't it? You're shaping the perfect version of it.
Yes, and I like when it's time to learn script or learn bits of it. I quite like that because it's kind of mindless. I can just sort of be in the garden whilst repeating something over to myself to make sure I remember a particular wording or something like that.
Mm.
So I love all the aspects of it, and then it's just a constant process. Even with my last show, Swan Power, which I did 126 times, and I just finished about 10 days ago. Even on the last performance, I was still coming up with like new ways to word something, or even on stage, I was actually coming up with I think I came up with a new line or just a new thing that I said just before something else that just elevated something. So it was still developing, even when it
Brilliant.
was in its last ever performance. So it's a real fun process.
I love that. When you're doing that process, especially now when you've obviously still got the last show entirely in your head and you're learning the next one, do you record it and then find the best ways you've said things?
Yes, I do record. I record my shows. Yeah, and often go back to the best way I said things. Often it's the way one says it on stage. You can sit for ages thinking what's the best way to word things, but you just go on stage and just instinctively the best way comes out.
Yeah.
Often it's the first time you've ever said something, the first time you've said a story or whatever it is, that it's just expressed perfectly the first time, and then we can go back to that recording later and say, oh yeah, that's how to do it, So that is often the way I'll do it. Like with bits of my new show, I did shows in December recently and in February, and so there I had 5 or 6 versions of particular bits, and then I or Aaron, we could listen to all of the versions and say, yeah, that's the way to word it. So yeah, that's a really, that having recording of it is a big help, because you can listen to it and the best way of saying something. And it also helps because sometimes you can have a false memory. You can sort of think, oh yeah, that particular night it went really well, much better than the other night, and so it's better to do it like that. And then you listen to the recording, it's not always as you imagined it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's recording is what I do on stage is a very important part of the writing process. And also performing, like with my new show, which I did for the very first time last night. Having done it for the first time, there were loads of great things. It was a great show. It was a great night. Everyone enjoyed it. But there were lots of things which I look at now, or Aaron and I look at, and we think, well, hang on, it was never going to be quite right to start like that. And there were lots of things that were so obviously to improve, but you kind of wouldn't realize until you actually go in and do it.
Yeah,
it's so obvious once you've done it. You look back and say, "Oh, yes, that's that needs to be more like this or that." So yes, going on stage is such an, I think, a very important part of writing. I can't imagine writing there. I think most performers, most stand-up comedians these days write in a similar way, with recording and developing, or even if they're not recording, most performers, they perform on stage, and that's a very important part of it. I don't think there are many comedians. I think it was Victoria Wood I read about, who would just write her show, and then it was just written, and then from the very first show, which might be at the Albert Hall or something, there were no previews. She would just have that script and learn it and just do it the same every night. There was I don't think there was much change to it. She just wrote it and then did it over and over again. Whereas for me, it would be writing on stage such an important part of the process.
Absolutely. Do you find it difficult at this stage, where you obviously have just finished the last show and you're just starting the next one, to be doing the new one but accidentally start doing a bit of the old one instead, just because it's in your head and you're like, what bit is next? Maybe this? Or
people have asked me that before.
Apologies.
No, it's all right. Yeah, people often ask me that. Oh, do you slip into the old show?
Yeah.
Well, no, not at all, because there's no. I mean, it depends. Different people have different ways of doing things. Some people have shows that evolve, and they're always just evolving into a new show all the time.
Yeah.
But in my case, it's a totally separate show with totally separate subjects and topics. So no,
Sure.
I wouldn't slip into the old show because it would not be relevant. And in that moment when I'm performing, there is no other show than the one I'm doing. It's just that's all there is. So yeah, I wouldn't do that.
And so you previously appeared on Never Mind the Buzzcocks and
Yes.
successfully managed to identify Lee Latchford Evans from Steps. Can you tell me, have you since seen Steps in concert at all?
I haven't. No, I think you say I successfully identified. I mean, I don't think it was by any skill. I think there were like 5 people. I had to choose which, and I didn't even know what Steps was. But I was just told Steps was like a band, and I had to work out who it was, who was from Steps, and I managed to get it right. But I mean, there was a bit of educated, sort of like working out 1 or 2 people that clearly actually had never been in a band. You could kind of tell, and then or they like laughed, or they were sort of like, I can't remember what it was, but there was something about them that gave away that they were just stooges. And then so I managed to choose whoever it was with a sort of like, it was like a 1 in 4 chance I'd get it right anyway. And then I haven't seen them because I listen to classical music mainly. I don't even know whether Steps are even in concert.
I consider Steps to be classical music.
I do, but I thought I didn't think they were doing it anymore.
Yeah, they're still touring. They still have albums and everything. They've topped the charts. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. Well, as you can see, I'm not like a big Steps. I'm not a fountain of knowledge on Steps. I mean, I was on that show, Never Mind the Buzzcocks, about 5 times, I think. And I don't think I ever got a single answer right about anything. I mean, it was fun. It was entertaining. And I think people enjoyed my going on there, but I never knew any of the answers at all.
Love that.
I remember the first time I went on there, I remember saying to my manager at the time, "Why am I doing this?" I said, I don't know anything about any of these things. And he said, "Well, you just there to be funny, Paul." Anyway, I was funny, I hope.
You are.
I think I was. People enjoyed it. But yeah, I never knew anything about anything at all. I had no idea. It's one of the reasons I think why I enjoyed it so much, and why I think a lot of people enjoyed watching me on there, was because I didn't know anything about pop music, really. I had no preconceived ideas about anything or about the show. I'd never even watched the show. I don't think I've even seen the show at all since. I've never actually watched an episode. I've only just been on it. My only experience of the show is going into the studio, sitting there on the panel behind the desk doing it, and then going home again. I've never actually watched it.
It's back on now on Sky One, I think.
Yes, I think it has come back. Yeah,
Greg Davis hosts it.
Yes, I've not seen that. I haven't seen it because, well, I haven't got a television for a start. So that's one of the reasons I've not seen it.
That makes it trickier.
Yes, it does make it tricky to watch things.
Does a bit.
I cut all the, I can't even get a television because I took my aerial off my ceiling, and there was a Sky dish, and I put that in the tip, and there were even wires that went into my house, and I cut them all and blocked off the holes. So I can't even get a television.
That's the best way of stopping it, to be honest.
Yeah, that way you can stop the TV getting in.
Yeah, most unnecessary. A very double dare it.
Yes.
You stopped all of that business, so that's good. In 2008, you were a finalist on Last Comic Standing. Did you actually go to Las Vegas?
Yeah, well, it started, I was in Miami for the early kind of heat, and then went to Las Vegas for the semi-final.
The afternoon heat.
Which was, sort of, that was the semi-final in Las Vegas. And then went to the final in Los Angeles.
Amazing. How was that experience for you?
It was
the comedy scene quite different to the UK?
Yes, I was surprised and pleased that my comedy translated to America. I mean, I was performing in Las Vegas to kind of middle America, like just like a an audience of Las Vegas people come to a show in Las Vegas. They're not, they're not necessarily people with a sort of sensibility of like people in Soho or something, but they all really loved my comedy, and it went really well. And I was really pleased that it translated to an American audience that wasn't in any way familiar with me or in any way familiar with the sort of zeitgeist of where I come from. So yeah, it was a great experience, and it also cured me of stage nerves because there were 15 million people watching on television.
Wow.
And so after doing that, I was never nervous again. I've never been nervous since. I just thought, okay, I've performed in front of 15 million people in America. I remember coming back from the show after I'd got knocked out. I was like one of the final 10 or something. I did get knocked out in the final, and coming back to the UK. And I think I had always been I had a lot of stage nerves before that. But I remember coming back, and I think I had some show in Hastings with about 200 people in the audience.
Yeah.
And I just thought, it's 200 people. I've just had 15 million people on TV. I'm not going to worry about it. I'll go and perform in front of these 200 people. And if they're nice and they like it, great. And if they're not nice, it's not I'll do my best up there, but it's not my problem. I'm not going to get nervous about it.
Yeah.
It just cured me of stage nerves.
That's brilliant. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I remember having to like read things at school when you're a kid, and then when you get a bit older and you do things on stage or whatever. And when you work out that the process of speaking is exactly the same, whether you're speaking to one person, 10 people, a room of people, or whatever, then you can kind of just get on with concentrating on what it is you're doing rather than thinking, oh, there's 5 extra people. It's going to be a bit more difficult.
Yes, I think so. I think there's all various techniques. You're supposed to imagine everyone's naked. I've never done that. It seems a weird thing to imagine.
It takes ages, and you'd have to have the lights on to even see everybody.
Yeah,
like, right, I've done that person.
A lot of performing is kind of an illusion, because often it's certainly in a theatre, one can see the front row, maybe the front 2, and you can't see anyone further back than that anyway. People sitting in the back, they can see you, and they can see all around them. They can see the people near them. In fact, they can see the whole room. And I think they assume I can, but because the lights are on me, can't see much anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Which probably makes it easier. So you just have to find a sort of general focal points where you assume people are.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, sometimes in the theatre, actually, you have to work out where the people are, as you say, because you can come on and you can't see anything. So it's quite useful to be aware. Oh, there's people up the top on that balcony on the right, and there's people right up there. You need to know where they are. You can't actually see them.
And not accidentally be talking to the ceiling or something.
Well, yes. So yeah, it's that's performance. That's stagecraft, as they call it.
It is indeed. Now, speaking of which, you were once on Would I Lie to You, and you revealed that you're repulsed by beards.
Yes.
And you had the opportunity to experience David Mitchell's beard. Have you recovered from that yet?
Yeah, I think I'm a bit better with beards than I was. I used to have a real massive phobia of them.
Yeah.
No, not so much now. I'm not so scared as I was, but I still don't like them very much. I mean, I always just think, why would you do that? Why not just, like, even before coming on here on this show just now, I just like shaved before going on, because it was like a bit. If it's just me in my own house, I think, well, as long as I don't look at myself in the mirror too much.
Right.
But I just think it's so much nicer to have a nice smooth face. And beard, I don't understand. And they're dirty. Yeah, and like when someone like drinks beer or something, and it must be all in the beard. It must drip down into the beard. Yeah. Just thinking about it is repulsing me. The thought of and imagine kissing someone with a beard, like all the beard like going against you.
And it's got yesterday's beer in it.
Yeah, yesterday. I mean,
like a pub beer mat.
I know they must actually clean. They must wash themselves and stuff, I suppose, people with beards. And I suppose they must clean all that bit. I don't know how you'd clean it, because you'd have to like get loads and loads of water all over it. No, not keen on beards. It's not my thing.
Well, I won't get you one for Christmas then.
Why do you have a beard festival at Christmas?
No.
Oh, you just
You
said you
think-
wouldn't get me on for Christmas.
Yeah,
Oh, you mean
it's a
Father
present,
Christmas?
yeah. Well, no, I wouldn't get you one as a gift for Christmas.
I didn't get the reference. Oh, I see. You wouldn't get me one
Yeah.
for Christmas. Yeah, you
But
wouldn't
I
get
mean,
me one.
if it went well and you liked it, I might host the whole festival for you. But I mean, I'll just start with one, I think. See how you
Yes.
get on.
Yes. Okay. Well, don't get me one for Christmas. Yes.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Yes.
Deal.
But yeah, I don't mind. I think I have got. I think I do. I do know some people with beards.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm really close friends with someone with a massive beard, or maybe I am. I'm thinking if there's anyone I know really well who's got a massive beard. That's an interesting question, isn't it? I don't know whether I have. Well, I've got a really close friend who's got like a massive. I've got some friends who've got like a little bit of,
Yeah.
but like a massive beard. Have I got a friend who's got a massive beard? I'll have to think about that after the show.
It's hard to have a close friend that has a massive beard because you can't get close to them because of the beard.
Well, no, and also like when the beard comes. I'm just thinking of beards now. Like when the beard comes all down like that. Like if you get a beard that goes right down. Ooh. Ooh, yeah. Would anyone do that to themselves? I mean, there's no beards in space. We're talking about space. I'm sure all astronauts are clean shaven, aren't they? I mean, you don't get beards fired up into space.
Well, the problem would be, as you mentioned earlier, when they have to get all the liquid out of the poo and the wee and things because there's only a limited amount. If people are drinking things with a beard, they're going to have to drain out their beard.
Yeah, how do you clean? That's an interesting question. How do you clean a beard in space? It's difficult enough cleaning it on the Earth, just spraying loads of water over it.
Yeah.
But in space, to clean a beard would be because you'd put water over it and then all the water would just be floating around. I suppose actually the only way of doing it would be to create like a sort of like a container. You could put your beard into this container that would be dry, and then it would have like a rubber seal all around there, so it's all sealed in there, and then water would be introduced into the inside to clean it all, and then the water would be sucked out, and then there'd be like a dryer would come on. And then once it was over, then the seal would be released and you could take it off. That would be how you do it. It's quite easy, really, when you think about it. Technologically, there's an easy fix.
Well, there is. So it's a huge relief, I'm sure, for many. Because otherwise, I think you'd either have to spin the spaceship really fast or have sufficient mass that the spaceship has gravity so that it falls downwards so that you could collate it all in one place.
Yes, that's how you could do it. I find that really interesting about you can make force gravity in space but like this is not in orbit. This is like for your Mars. Well, I suppose it would apply in orbit, but it would be anyway. But you get the thing to like rotate round and round, so you have a kind of gravity. Yeah. It has to be quite big because if you have like a small thing that's going round and round like that, then you'll have a differential in like where your feet are on your head. So it will like be pulling you in a weird direction. It won't be like being on the Earth. It'd be really weird. You'd have like a sort of torque on you. That would be interesting. I would like to invent if I have another career or don't do comedy anymore, microgravity environments where you can make things go round and round with its own gravity.
I think it'd be useful and very popular at theme parks.
Yes, I find that fascinating. Like in theme parks, when you get like that thing which goes round and round, and people on the edge of it, and then it can even go. You're on the edge going round and round like that, and then the floor goes, and then they even tip it up, so you're going round and round and round, and at the top you're still on. And if they do it just right at the top, you're just about to fall. You feel like you're about to fall, but then it goes round. It's very clever.
I've never quite trusted them, so I usually would look after the people's bags and then just take the photos of them screaming.
Oh, you take their. Oh, what? They're screaming because you've stolen all their things.
Yeah, I don't know them.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's a good thing to do. Yeah, yeah. People you don't know, just take their bags away while they're on that thing. Yeah, good
Yeah.
idea.
Keeps the vomit off them as well, which I can then use to propel boats across the Atlantic.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and then that's where how you can manage to get friends for your birthday party. Not really friends; they're just people trying to reclaim their property you've stolen from them.
Well, not stolen. I've looked after it for them.
Well,
As long as they've got a token, they get it back.
Oh, they get it back.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Oh, that's nice.
The last thing I want is to be carrying around other people's baggage my entire life.
But emotional baggage or just
Yeah.
general baggage?
Same thing usually.
Yeah.
They've cried in it.
Well, that's true. Or vomited in it.
Yeah. Vomit is an emotion, isn't it, really?
Yeah, kind of is. It's
Yeah.
actually quite emotional, isn't it? When one vomits, it's like quite an unpleasant thing, isn't it? I'm glad I haven't vomited today, or indeed, I can't remember when the last time I vomited. It must have been like when I had food poisoning or something like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not vomiting today. It's not, I don't like vomiting.
It's a massive relief, isn't it? Although sometimes you feel better after doing it.
Well, of course, you feel better. If you have to vomit, you have to vomit.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But yes, it's not, I'm not a big fan of it. Just doing it just for the sake of it. I don't think so.
It's just showing off, isn't it?
Yes.
So you were on Celebrity Coach Trip and Russell Brand pretended to be you on stage and you pretended to be Angela Lansbury. But can you tell me this? If there was a movie of your life, who would you like to play you?
Oh, yeah, who would play me in a movie of my life?
Yeah.
Well, yes. It's how about, I suppose I look a bit like, people have said I look a bit like Gene Wilder. So if he was alive, he could still do it, but he can't.
Can't, sadly, unless they did AI or something.
Yeah, so I'm more likely to play him.
Yeah.
So who would play me? What about like who's like an actor I really like? Who do I really like in acting? I don't watch films much, so I don't know who all the actors are. But I think I might like someone like what about David Arquette? I saw David Arquette being interviewed by you. I like him. There's something that is interesting and sort of magnetic about him. And the fact that his sister's Patricia Arquette adds to the excitement.
Indeed, yeah. Patricia, Rosanna Arquette, amazing.
Well, there's another Rosanna.
Yeah, and there was Alexis as well. Amazing family of actors. And yeah, I love David Arquette, who was on my show just after filming Scream 5, I think.
Yes. Acting is an interesting thing. It's not like any other profession because you do get dynasties, you get families who are all actors.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get you might get a family where someone's an accountant and their daughter's an accountant as well or something. That can happen. But you wouldn't get a dynasty of accountants that just goes on and on like that. Acting is such a strange business. To have families where it goes on for generations of them all acting. And also you get like retirement homes for actors. You can't think of any other profession where you would get a load of people all together in a retirement home of one profession. Acting is the, in my opinion, the weirdest of all the professions. So yeah, I'll get David Arquette. I thought he looked interesting. I think he had a bit of a beard though.
Yeah.
So he would, so that would be one advantage. So when I saw the video, he had a beard. One of the advantages of him playing me is that it would mean he'd have to shave his beard. And then I could then go and have like dinner with him. He'd probably want to have dinners with me.
Of course.
Because he'd want to study me so that he could play me. And then he'd have to shave his beard. Mind you, he wouldn't shave, well, he'd have to shave his beard at some stage. So once he's playing me, I could say, oh, I'll come to see you just to see how it's going, David. And his face would be all smooth. And so that would be nice. So it'd be one face that was smoother. So in my small way, I'd be making the world a a smoother place. So I don't know what the original film would be called. Paulfoot, the movie, and then the next one, Paulfoot, the movie too. Because we know that the sequels are never as good as the originals, are they?
But they are sometimes. I'm interviewing someone tomorrow, a slightly different interview with an actor who is in The Godfather 1 and 2. And that's Godfather Part 2 is often considered to be better than the original.
Oh, well, you can get that then.
Yeah.
And in fact, maybe you can get a sequel. Like for example, I've often fantasized. I think it's really, I like the idea. I find it hilarious, the idea that say, like I could become like a really, like, imagine I became more famous than I am now, and I became such a successful comedian that people started, like Elvis, people started doing a Paulfoot impersonation, and then but then me, so I became really massively successful that people would start to impersonate me. But then my career kind of nosedives to the point where the people who are impersonating me are more successful than me. So then to try and reinvigorate my career, I then become a Paulfoot impersonator, but I'm only the second most successful Paulfoot impersonator. So I've become sort of trapped in like in a sort of dystopian nightmare of sort of my own career as I become increasingly sort of disconnected from the human being I once was, and I have to go around impersonating myself.
Sounds quite exciting.
Yeah, I think they did say wasn't there once some, I don't know whether it's true. They said there was an Elvis impersonation thing, and Elvis entered an Elvis impersonation thing and like came third or something.
Yeah, I think I heard something with Charlie Chaplin as well. He might have done thing like that. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's what I was maybe confusing. They all got muddled up in my head. But yeah, Charlie Chaplin. He didn't even win. He didn't even win the Charlie Chaplin impersonation contest.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because I think an impersonator would do like an exaggerated version of that person. So it'd be like everything cranked up to 10, whereas the actual performer may not do that. This other person's exaggerating all of their mannerisms, and it may come across to someone that wasn't an expert that was the real one.
Yes. So that is what would happen. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, maybe one day someone will play me in a film. Don't know what the film's going to be about.
Well, I'm going to have to get in contact with David Arquette straight after this.
Yes, well, you have had David Arquette on your show.
I have indeed. I'm going to have him back now.
Yes, and yeah, he seemed like a nice man. He seemed like I like him. He seems a nice man.
I love David Arquette, and there's one thing I want to do with him actually. He does painting classes in LA, and I'd love to go to one of them one day. Like, Bob Ross, the guy that did like famous landscapes, and he taught people how to paint on the TV. So he is a certified art teacher and does that, and he does things for charity as well. So he can actually be taught to paint by David Arquette.
Yeah, well, that sounds interesting. That would be nice to go to his. Oh, so David Arquette does art class.
Yeah. He does, yeah. So you should check that out.
Oh, maybe I'll go on an art class with David Arquette.
You should. I'd recommend it. Well, we could both do it. We can go over there, have a little mini holiday.
Yeah.
Do some art.
And take some of our mutual friends.
I can meet them for the first time.
Yeah, you can meet your friends for the first time.
I'm really hyped to meet them, actually.
Yeah. They're nice. Your friends I'm talking about, Yeah. I've known them for years, your friends, so they're nice people, they're nice.
I mean, it'll be nice to catch up, to be honest. I'm going to have to start from the beginning and just find out everything about them.
I mean, they don't even know that they're your friends yet, but they will be.
Strangers are just friends I haven't met yet or something.
That's what they say. And they also say age is just a number.
Yeah.
But it's obviously not just a number, is it? It's also your age.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's also other things.
Yeah.
If you're 40-something, you can get 40 grapes in a box of grapes, can't you? They're 40 in a different way. They're a quantity rather than
what, 40 grapes? Yeah.
Yeah.
40 grapes. Yeah. So it's not just, a number. exactly. It's not just ages are not numbers necessarily,
No.
and numbers are not ages. And
No.
also, I like phrases that, like you get these phrases like age is just not a number, and I like phrases that don't even like contradict, like many hands make light work, and also too many cooks spoil the broth.
Yeah.
Two things that are opposing.
Sometimes there could be a lot of cooks that make amazing broth, and are people still buying broth?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, no, people don't buy broth so much, do they?
No.
But of course, if you do buy broth, that will be made, well, in a brothel, of course. That's where they make them.
I mostly just rent broth. I don't buy it.
Oh, you rent it, yeah.
Give it back afterwards.
Yeah, I do. That's the best way. It's sale or return, because you can use however much broth you need and give back the rest.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, the important thing is there's not too many cooks making it. So if even in a factory where they make broth, there'll be only just one person who's dealing with the broth. There'll be a massive vat of broth, and there's just one person doing it.
He happens to have many hands. There's an octopus making it.
Yeah, an octopus makes it because many hands make light work. Yeah. So it would be an octopus making broth. Yeah,
I think that's what
the ideal.
Yeah, that's what that means, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what it means. It means an octopus would be the ideal creature to make a broth.
Yeah, that's a full version of that saying. It's quicker not to.
Yes. If an octopus is made into a broth, then it'd be a bisque, wouldn't it?
Yeah, broctopus.
Oh, broctopus.
Yeah.
I didn't get that joke.
I didn't either.
No, I know.
I was hoping you would have.
No, I didn't get it. But yeah, and I think you have to be it's a bisque only if it's lobster or shrimp.
I mostly only know about fish fingers. I don't know about all the fancy ones.
Yes, but I don't think an octopus would want to make bisque. I think it would be too close to home for the octopus.
Well, it depends where they cook it.
Well, that's true.
That's true.
If they didn't make it at home, then it wouldn't be a problem.
So you were really good at 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown. Obviously,
I did well on
got
those.
maths background.
Yeah, I did maths at university.
Yeah. Have you ever been tempted to go on the regular show and just hundreds of times and win loads of mugs and pens and clocks and just open like a shop?
Yeah, it could do. When I went on, I don't think I'd do very well, because when I went on that 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown, I don't know what happened. Like, I got a 9. I think I got 2 9-letter words.
Yeah.
And I never, like, if I ever watch it on the TV, like film in a hotel or something, and Countdown comes on, I never do well. I never get like more than like a 6-letter word. I'm always hopeless. So I don't know how, but just I was in the studio and I got, I think, 2 9-letter words. And then even when the numbers game, obviously I studied maths at university, so but I'm not that good at like arithmetic and the sort of complicated things like Rachel Riley does when she makes a thing, and then 6 times something makes 87 minus the 4, then times something, then take away the 25. And I'm just like, wow, how did you get that?
Yeah.
I don't normally do that, but for some reason when I was on the show, I just managed to get some quite complicated numbers one. I don't know how I did it, but I'm sure it was just like a fluke. I'm sure, I've been on that program 2 or 3 times. I've always done, but there was one particular one where I just did really well, got a couple of 9 letters and solved some really complicated numbers one. But I don't think I normally would. I don't know what happened to me. And because of it, everyone always says, oh, you're brilliant at Countdown. And then I have to say to them, not really. I just had some fluke.
It's brilliant. I love that.
So, I wouldn't go. So it's probably best not to go on the main one. I'd just be humiliating myself. And also, it is slightly easier on the Countdown version because one gets just a tiny bit more time. Like it's 30 in the show, it's for 30 seconds, isn't it? But because I think it was only a few seconds more, but I might have spent another 10 seconds at the end. Just, I think they might have gone to John Richardson and said, John Richardson. And meanwhile, I just thought, oh, actually, just multiply that another 7 or something. So, full disclosure, I might have taken an extra 10 seconds beyond what's on the thing. And obviously, no one's going to be bothered that I just wrote something down 30 seconds later because it's a comedy program. But if it was an actual quiz, someone might actually just say, you are disqualified. That is not allowed.
It's really interesting. I hosted an event for ITV in Manchester, and somebody in the audience happened to work at Countdown, which is just across the street. And they invited me to come and watch a taping. So I went along anyway. I thought, okay, that sounds like fun, because I was done with the thing I was doing in the morning. So I go to the taping, and it's really interesting. Everyone in the audience is given an iPad to actually work out the maths and play along as well if you want to.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But no one, they never actually ask anyone in the audience whether they've solved it. Sometimes they say, has anyone in the audience got the conundrum? But they never say, like, if Rachel Riley couldn't even do the thing, they never say, is anyone in the audience worked it out, do they?
No.
So, I mean, that's a waste of notepads, in my opinion.
It's a bit. They asked me if I wanted to stay on for another 2 episodes, but I thought, just to watch them, because they're taping 3 in a row, I thought I can't do too much maths in a row. I'm not very brilliant at it.
So, but did you enjoy watching the taping?
Yeah, no, I loved it. Yeah, and I got to meet Susie Dent and Rachel Riley, and yeah, it was really good. But yeah, I'm rubbish at maths. That's probably why if I'd stayed, I would have got better.
Yeah, you might have. Yes, arithmetic. Yes. Well, yeah, it's it's a fun program.
Yeah, it was just a normal one. It wasn't the comedy one.
Yes, I know. It's a serious one.
It was a bit. And so you were once a panelist on Big Brother's Big Mouth. Would you ever consider actually going into the house and being a contestant?
Well, I suppose I'd consider it. I mean, yeah, it's one of those hypothetical things when people say, would you go on various programs? Yeah, I would. It's like when people say, would I go on what's it called? Dancing Around.
Yeah,
that one.
Strictly
Dancing. Would I go on that? Well, the answer is, well, I would go on it because it would probably be money and also good publicity for me, and it would be, but at the same time, it's not in any sense like some dream of mine to go on it. So what was the one you said? I can't remember what it was. It was just one of those things I don't even care about. Oh, Big Brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose I'd go on it if it was the right opportunity, the right money or something. But it's not like I don't dream of going on that.
No.
I mean, I'm not someone who I don't go into comedy trying to get into television. Like thinking there are people who do that. They're comedians, but they really want to. They do it as a vehicle to get into television because that's what they love doing more than the live performance. Some of them never perform live again. Some of them do the odd bit occasionally, but no, I'm a real hardcore, live performer. So yeah, it's nice to be on TV, and I love doing all the things on TV. But I do it really because it boosts my profile for my
elevates your comedy.
Elevates the comedy. So, and I did do that show in America, Last Comic Standing, which was a bit like Big Brother because it was a reality show, and it wasn't quite like Big Brother because they didn't film us 24 hours a day, but they did sometimes come in with a film crew and like film us all sort of like getting ready to go out, and they'd film in the bath and stuff, but it wasn't like they made sure I had all bubbles over me, so it was all like demure.
Yeah, that's what we have to do in this interview as well. So we just do the cutaways later. So I'll do all the bath stuff and the playing table tennis
and all the naked stuff.
Yeah, all the naked stuff. Yeah, and we'll just cut that in and close up sort of your hands and things. And yeah.
Well, that's nice. We're going to get naked at some stage in this interview, I presume.
Oh yeah, I mean, it depends how long it goes on. If it becomes summer, it's just going to naturally happen, isn't it?
Well, it would be, yeah. And there'd be sleep going on and things like that.
Plus, once it's past the watershed, I think you have to or something. Don't know how it works.
I don't know what the watershed is. I mean, why is there a shed full of water?
Maybe I built it or something. I don't know.
And why is that at 9 o'clock that there's a shed full of water? I don't know what it means. I don't know why it's called a watershed.
I don't know. All I know is that the TV becomes filthy at 9 p.m. People will be mid-sentence just start swearing.
Swear. Sex.
Yeah.
Violence. And blasphemy. Although no one talks about blasphemy anymore, really.
No.
That's the one that I remember even when I was like a child, like in the late 70s and early 80s, like blasphemy was still like a thing. People would say, oh my God. They'd say, well, they wouldn't say, oh my God, obviously, but they'd say, you have blasphemed. Like if you said that was an actual thing, people would say, oh my God, oh my goodness, you've done blasphemy. You shouldn't have said, Jesus Christ, it's blasphemy. Like it seems so old fashioned now.
Maybe they just say it to younger people and people wouldn't necessarily say that to you like when you're an adult as much. I don't know.
I think society has moved on a bit as well.
And yeah, some people have.
Some people have.
Others not so much, trying to move backwards. Yeah. Bless them. In 2016, you did a show called "'Tis a Pity She's a Piglet," which I watched last night. A lot of fun. I've got it behind me there.
You've got it on there, and I can see. I think I've signed it.
I don't know if you have. Yeah, inside there is a sign. Well, it has got your autograph inside it.
But has it got my autograph on the front?
It could be printed. No, it's got a picture of a pig, and it's got. Well, unless you've got very neat handwriting.
Oh no, that isn't my signature. That's just what it says. I thought there's a signature. No. I can't really see it because it's. Yes. That was a fascinating bit of the show, wasn't it? I'm sure people will, in years to come, will say, "Have you seen that bit when Paul Foot was on the Sarah O'Connell show?" And then there was like a pointless bit that went on for about 45 seconds when they said, "Oh, is there a signature on there?" "I don't think so." And Sarah was saying, "No, there isn't a signature on it. Please move on, Paul. There's no signature on it. I'm actually in the same room as it." And then Paul kept saying, "Oh, I think I can see a signature. I'm sure it's a signature." It's a fascinating bit.
But to be fair, you'd probably remember if you had signed it. If anyone's to know if you'd signed it, you would.
Well, I have signed lots of them in the part. That's why I assumed I signed it. Where did you get it?
Amazon.
Ah, yes. If it came from Amazon, I wouldn't have signed it.
You haven't signed it yet.
No, but if it was from a show, I probably would have signed it.
Exactly.
If you told me it was from Amazon, you could have saved a lot of bother there with me saying, "Is it signed? I can't see my signature on it." It really would have helped.
That was going to be part of my follow-up question.
Ah, the follow-up, but we haven't had the main question yet.
We haven't. We're only in the middle, which is why I haven't referenced where I got it from yet.
Ah. So what is the next question?
In that DVD and indeed in the show, there's one part of it, someone shouted out that it was Annabelle's 21st birthday.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Yeah. How do you avoid losing where you are when stuff like that happens? Because people will just spontaneously shout things out, don't they? Like if you're in the middle of a joke or something.
They don't always, but yeah, it was interesting. So just because something's being filmed for DVD doesn't necessarily mean that the audience is going to be any better behaved. You know, there were a great audience, but there were people just getting all excited and something about someone's birthday.
Yeah.
And it's like funny that I'm recording it for all time for posterity. And then this is just, but then that's live performance. It is a capture of a live event. It's just, I've forgotten what the question was.
How do you prevent yourself from forgetting where you'd got to?
That is ironic, isn't it? That was the question. How do you forget yourself from forgetting where you are? And I literally forgot where I was there in answering the question and what the actual question was.
That's the power of suggestion.
It's the power of suggestion. Yeah, it made me forget. Yeah, so I don't know really. I wouldn't forget. I mean, I think when I'm doing the show, it does sometimes happen. If there's an interruption in the show, one sometimes has to say to the audience, "Oh, where was I?" You know, because you can't actually remember where you were. And then they say, "Oh, something." Oh, and then yes, you normally remember where you were, but not always. But yeah, normally remember, I suppose, by the method of the short-term memory. That's how I would normally do it.
There's also a really interesting deleted scene where someone left to go to the toilet and it was really funny. You took their coat and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So not much of a problem audience member, apart from the fact that they interrupted you. But what's the most difficult thing you've had to deal with, like a drunken person? Or
I think probably the most awkward thing for a comedian is when you have someone who's being disruptive and is actually to the point where it's going to wreck the show, but they're really into the comedy. If it's someone just being disruptive and they don't like it, mate, and all that, that's reasonably easy to deal with, because you can turn the audience against them and you can say, look, what are you here for? You're not enjoying it. You're spoiling it for everyone. But it's when someone's like really into it, but maybe because I've had quite a few wines, they just can't stop saying stuff and interrupting. And then you have to decide you need to get rid of them because you just can't go on and it's going to spoil it. And although you feel for that person and it's sad to have to get them thrown out, you're also aware there's 199 other people or whatever in the room who you have to serve them and make sure they get the show.
yeah.
So that's like the most awkward, because it's kind of sad, really. But on a few occasions, I have had to have people who are into it, but they just got drunk or something and they got overexcited, and then and then throw them out. Well, you're like reading from like a parchment, are you?
Every single word of this, yeah, everything is scripted. I write the questions on my phone, so just bullet points, really. Some are just words. Like say Big Brother or something, and then I go talk about Big Brother, so I don't forget the things.
And then you said your friend had done something. Like someone's got into your phone and like hacked into it and put new questions in.
Yeah, no, it's just my phone was just being annoying. But it's right.
Oh, your phone. I thought you said your friend.
Well, it technically is my friend.
Well, it is your phone, is it? In fact, as we know, your phone is your only friend. You don't have any friends other than my friends.
Well, no, that's quite a lot now.
There's a lot of people, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And also, I've got a phone here, so there's another friend for you.
It's almost an incalculable amount of people. It's like the number for pi, or
yeah, it's irrational.
It is. That's why they call it a friendship circle.
Yeah, it's a friendship circle.
Yeah.
Because it's yeah.
So you filmed your 2016 show, and I know you have a few available on your website on CD as well. But have you filmed any of your other previous shows, and would you ever consider, if you have, releasing them to stream on a platform anywhere?
Yes, I did film my latest show, Swan Power, which is currently in the edit section, checking camera angles and all that stuff. And that's going to come out on streaming on Next Up.
Oh, brilliant.
And other things. So yes, I have not only have I considered it, Sarah, I have actually done it.
This is very good news. I recently just became a Next Up VIP member, so I now have lifetime Next Up.
Oh, have you? You've got lifetime?
Yeah, I bought unlimited Next Up.
Wow. For the rest of your life?
Yeah, it's really funny. I quite like comedy, so.
And what about if you die? Does it pass? Can you pass it on to your?
I hope so.
Heirs and successors.
I was watching something about timeshares in America the other day, and apparently it's an actual nightmare. Like if you own a timeshare, like there's this whole legal massive problem that happens with your next of kin and stuff. But yeah, apparently they're going to send me a card next month, and you can go to live tapings and submit questions and things.
Well, that sounds fun. Well, if I do another one with Next Up, you can come to.
Oh, I'd love to.
You can come to the recording of it.
That'd be very exciting.
With your card, of course.
Oh yeah, I'd have to bring the card. It's really funny too, because it says it doesn't actually do anything. It's just if you want one, you can have one. So I was like, yeah, which I thought was quite a good thing to do, support live comedy and all that.
I would be more interested in something that gave me limited rights, but was available for an unlimited time.
Mm.
So then I wouldn't have to rush into it. I could just get it if I felt like it at any time, because there'd be no limits to when I could take up the offer.
Mm.
But when I do take up the offer, it would have a lot of limits to it.
You would like then on Amazon, if you rent a film or something, then I think you have 30 days to watch it. But once you've started watching it, you've got 2 days to finish it.
Yeah, that's a sort of limit I like. There's sort of something unlimited about it, but then there's limits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea.
I like to have a mixture of both in my life, just a relentless amount of continual comedy and then a 30-day period to watch something for a certain amount of time.
Yes, I like that too. I like that idea.
It's
Yes.
got a
I don't
certain
know
level of risk to it.
why do they do that. Like, if you've got it for 30 days, why do you have to watch it within 2 days? What's the commercial idea behind that?
Oh,
What is the
I suppose it's the idea that it's sort of a bit more like owning it if you've got it for a month rather than just having a license to watch it. Like you can only watch it a certain amount in a couple of days, right? But if you've got it for 30 days,
can't
then
just watch 10 minutes of it every day for a month?
right. So I could put it on, watch it for a minute, and then leave it for a day and a half and then watch the rest of it. Or I could watch it, it finishes, I watch it again and again and again. So once I start watching it, I can watch it relentlessly for 2 days or accidentally forget.
Yeah, I think that's like they're missing out there. They're missing out on the sorts of people who would want to just watch 10 minutes of it per day for 30 days. That's what I'd like to do.
But see, a lot of things on there, they'll be like £3.50 to rent and £5.99 to buy. So a lot of the time I end up buying them because when I research a guest on my show, I'll, if I can, watch every single thing they've ever done, which might take me a week or 2 weeks. And I'll often, I mean, it cost me a fortune this show. And
Yes.
I'll just end up buying really random films from the 1960s or 70s. But I love doing that.
Well, they're clever there. That's marketing, isn't it? It's called the irrelevant alternative.
Yeah.
It's like when you're like at the cinema and there's like you can get like a load of sweets or something in a thing, and it's like medium is £10, but large is £12.
Yeah.
It's very clever because it draws your attention away from the fact that £12 for the big thing of sweets isn't very good value, because you think, oh, that's good. It's only an extra £2 to go from medium to large. But so you end up, no one gets the £10 one because it's obviously you're going to just spend £2 more to get the large one.
Yeah.
So it's the irrelevant alternative. It's a very clever marketing technique, which you've fallen for.
Well, I think what it is too is that, well, no, I like watching films, and oftentimes if I interview one person, I might go back and interview someone else from it. So it makes sense for me to own it, have it in the future too. But yeah, I think what they actually do is if there's 3 drinks, it's the middle one that's actually the most expensive. It's the worst value for money because they've made it really close to the expensive one. And so you want to get just, they want to squeeze that extra 50p out of you or something.
Yeah, that's the irrelevant alternative. Again, that's when you have small is £5. So sometimes people might get small for £5, medium for 9, large for 10. The irrelevant alternative.
Mm-hmm.
Very clever.
And I always go no ice as well, so I get more drink.
Oh, no ice. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yes, no
it's
ice.
It's often quite cold anyway.
Yeah, I don't. I like like if you get something like a milkshake or something, and it's all like ice cream in it, and I can't even drink it. Some of them I have to take it. I have to take it home and leave it at room temperature for about 15 hours before I can drink it. There's so much ice in there.
One of the cinemas I go to have these slushy things, but I don't know what they're made of. But you can drink like a bucket of it, and you don't need to go to the toilet halfway through. I think it's just made of air or something. But the problem with them is because you have a paper straw, the thing dissolves halfway through the film. So then you have to have a second straw. Otherwise you can't drink it because the ice won't go up the thing.
Yeah, that's another nightmare. As well as another nightmare is when you get one of those bubble tea things with those, like, I love them, those jelly things in.
Yeah, they
get stuck in a straw. And then they put ice in, so you can't even. Well, it's a nightmare.
It is.
It's another nightmare.
But it's the best kind of one because they feel quite futuristic to me. I quite like them.
Yeah, I love those bubble teas.
Yeah,
I love anything, and I love all those like Vietnamese desserts that have all got like weird, like green and red beans in and weird jellies and stuff.
Yeah,
I love anything like that.
Really
delicious.
Good. Delicious and nutritious, probably.
Yeah. I love any kind of jelly.
Well, that is noted for our party then. I once did a 5 jelly thing in a jar that took me about a day. And every 4 hours, I'd put another strip of colour of jelly in it. And I put the jug at an angle. So it was kind of stripy lines.
Oh, so what? You had like a big jelly in a big jar?
Yeah, but 5 colour jelly. And one of them had lemonade in it. Instead of using water, I use that.
Oh, you put lemonade in.
Yeah.
Wow. But obviously all the bubbles would have disappeared.
Yeah, but it just had a bit of cheekiness to it. It's good.
Well, that sounds nice.
I recommend it.
Oh, well, yeah, maybe at our party we'll have a jelly.
Oh, yeah. And then I can have a separate one, vodka jelly, and then, yeah, all sorts. Just have to
Yes.
label them properly.
If you put too much alcohol in it, won't set, will it?
It's true. Also, pineapple stops things from setting.
Yeah, and papaya.
Mm.
But I think you can get pineapple jellies, but they've obviously done something to it to
It's
make
got
it.
a flavouring in it.
It's got, so they've done something clever.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I love anything to do with jelly. I could talk about jelly all day. I love the idea of making jellies. Like when I get a pork pie, I love the jelly so much.
Well, that's the great thing about them. It's kind of like a dessert, isn't it? You've got your main, then your dessert.
But I'd like to go to a restaurant that is all jelly. You start with like savoury aspics and then move on to sweet jellies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it could be all different types of jelly. Some of them could be like with gelatine. Some of them could be with agar, and there's another thing you can put in jelly to make it. So it'd all be different types of jelly.
Well, I'm probably going to get the pronunciation of this massively wrong. You know the drink Fanta? In Japan, there's something called furu Fanta, which has got bits of jelly in it, and you have to shake it and then drink it. It's just got like this jelly stuff. And the nearest that I can sort of compare it to is, have you ever had aloe vera drinks?
I love that.
Jelly stuff.
Because I've got loads of aloe vera plants in my house, and I've tried eating bits of it. It's so bitter. You can eat it, but it's really bitter.
Yeah.
They obviously have to put a load of sugar in with it. But someone spent ages working out how to suspend the aloe vera in the water or in the juice. It's very clever.
It's really good. Really nice drink.
It's delicious. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I had some only about 2 weeks ago. I had like a massive thing of aloe vera.
Yeah.
I bought it for me and Aaron because we were on tour in Australia, but he said he didn't like it, so I had the whole all to myself.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, lovely.
Really good.
Coconut jelly. Oh my God, I've just remembered something so good, like young coconut. When you get that young coconut and it's like a jelly, it's just like a natural jelly. That really soft. I love talking about jelly.
We're going to have to do a dedicated jelly companion piece to this, aren't we?
I would like to do a whole thing just
about the jellies of the world or something.
Yeah, I love it. I love jelly.
Interestingly, in America, you get powdered jelly.
What? You put the powder into the liquid?
Yeah.
And then it makes the jelly?
Yeah, Jello mix or whatever it's called.
Oh, yes. Jello, because they call it Jello. Would you like some Jello, they say.
Yeah.
That's their word for jelly. Jello.
Then, but their word for jelly is what they would say instead of jam, isn't it? They'd say peanut butter and jelly.
Oh, so their jelly is jam?
Yeah.
Oh.
So they had to call it Jello.
That's why they call it Jello.
Mm.
Confusing.
When I do this, I research in all directions, just anything we might possibly talk about.
That's good. Like sweets, like we call them sweets, and in America they call it candy, and in Australia they call it. Do you know what they call it in Australia? Lolly.
Lolly, yeah.
And then, but if you have a lollipop in Australia, they call that a icy. They've got some other name, icy suck or something. You know, they've got some other words. They don't call it a lollipop.
And do they call sandals a thong?
Yeah, they call them a thong.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and also, I've just thought this: if you get a lollipop can either be like a frozen lollipop or it can be like a sweet. A lollipop can be two things.
Oh yeah, I reckon we're going to get a whole series out of this. It's going to be really
good. I think so.
Yeah. So speaking of which, can you tell me a fun fact about you? Something we may not know, a hobby, a party trick, something like that.
Our party trick, I suppose. I've got quite delicate sort of hands, but I can hold really hot things in my hands, hotter than most people can. So that's my party trick. Is like, in fact, I've stopped doing it now because it annoys everyone, so I don't do it anymore. But sometimes if I'm in a restaurant and they say the plate's really hot, then I put it on my hand and say, "Oh yeah, isn't it hot? It's really hot." I can hold really hot things in my hands.
What is the upper limit to that? Obviously, I'd assume you wouldn't take something out of the oven without some kind of.
No, I mean there is an upper limit. I can still burn myself. I'm not an alien. I'm still a human being. But yeah, I can hold hot things that for some people they'd be like, oh, that's really hot. I can hold much. I'm at the upper limits of the tolerance to hotness on hands of humanity.
And does that also apply if you were to have a bath? Could you have a really hot bath and it doesn't affect you?
Yeah, I love having a hot bath. My favorite is I love to have a really hot bath and then run cold water into it until it's completely cold. I like to lie in a hot bath until it's it's unbearably hot. And I often put my feet out because my feet are getting so hot I can't bear it, the heat. And then I put cold water in until it's completely cold. I love that.
Yeah, it's quite nice having the juxtaposition of the cold water on your feet and the warmer bath, isn't it?
Oh, it's marvelous. And I've made sure I've got a bath in my house where the taps they're at the end of the bath and I can manipulate them with my toes. So I don't have to move. I can just use the toes to adjust the temperatures completely to my liking at all times.
Very nice. Does that ever go wrong if your foot slips and you just have an abundance of hot water cascading and then you can't go near it because it's splashing? And
if it goes wrong,
if you wanted a little bit more hot, for example, but you do it too much.
Well, it could go wrong if, for example, I pulled at the hot, but then the tap came off its washer thing and fell off, and then I'd been like a nightmare with all the hot water coming out, and I wouldn't be able to turn it off. And the closer I got to try to get towards it to turn it off, the more and more I'd be burning myself, and then I was just be getting hotter and hotter, and it would be the unbelievable pressures, and I couldn't turn it off, and until eventually I just boiled alive in the bath. The worst case scenario, but luckily that's never happened.
Good, huge relief. And then you just turn into a gas or something because your molecules are moving too fast.
Yes.
Now, you've recently come back from the Melbourne Comedy Festival. You were there for a month, I think. How did that go?
Oh, that went well, thanks. Yeah, super. I was there for 2 months in Australia, traveling all around.
Oh, wow.
And I went all over the place. I started in Adelaide for about 9 days, and then I went to Canberra for a couple of days, then to Melbourne, and then to Brisbane and Gold Coast, back to Canberra for a day, then back to Melbourne. I was there for 4 weeks, and it was all there was loads of travel, getting on planes, doing a show that night. It was quite intense, It was fun. Oh, I'm too high. I'm lowering myself. I'm still too high. It's because I was sitting on this cushion. It's because the reason I was too high is I was sitting on this cushion because I'm actually sitting on a toadstool.
Oh, really?
Well, actually, I'm not sitting on a toadstool. That's obviously ridiculous. I can't sit on a toadstool. It wouldn't be strong enough to support a person. But I'm sitting on a toadstool stool.
I love it.
Yes, I'm sitting on this toadstool stool, you see. And it can be a bit uncomfortable on the bottom, you see. So that's why I put this cushion, but then I was too high.
But the important thing is, are you comfortable?
Yeah, I'm comfortable, yeah.
Good. Because, I mean, I don't mind if you have 10 cushions and you're really comfortable, but then we just see your feet or something.
Yes, well, yeah, I'm comfortable, very comfortable.
Just have a complex mirror system.
Yeah, I could do that. That would be one way of doing it. But really? I just decided to come up. I'm in my loft. Well, it's not my loft. I shouldn't call it my loft anymore. It used to be a loft. It's now it's all been converted into my a creative space. And so I came out here because it gets nice and warm especially it's not been that warm today really, but up here it's like a conservatory. It gets all nice and warm in the evening.
Yeah, really good light as well. So you've got a skylight thing, I imagine?
Yeah, I've got a skylight right there on top of me. If I go like that, you'll hear it. That is me banging on glass.
And have you got a telescope? Do you ever look at space?
I have actually got these binoculars. They're not real binoculars because they're just pretend. But then I have also got real binoculars. so I can look into space. It's like looking at you now with my binoculars, and you look ever so big.
Thank you. It's very
And now I'm
flattering.
looking out, and I can see into space. I can see clouds.
And people waving at you on distant planets.
Yeah. And rockets going around, and people and shits flying around the Earth. Yeah, so
And people with damp beards.
and beards going around the Earth. Yeah, so yeah, I'm very comfortable here. Thank you. I hope you're comfortable. And
I am the same seat for a very long time since I was at university, and I recently upgraded it, so I've got one that's a bit more comfortable now.
oh, that's nice. You're on like a chair, are you?
I'm on a bit of a swivel
I've
chair
got a
situation.
swivel chair situation downstairs in my like office. I've got a nice swivel chair, and it's all comfortable.
Yeah.
But up here, it's get on the toadstool stool situation.
Oh yeah, that's what you want to do. It's a bit more fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. Sit on a toadstool, use your pretend binoculars to look at nothing.
Yeah.
I think so. So can you tell me about your brand new show, Dissolve?
My brand new show, Dissolve, it's my most autobiographical show. If I say most, I don't think any of the shows before have been even remotely autobiographical. It's my most personal show. Again, I don't think any of my shows before have been in any way personal. They've just been sort of quite abstract and surreal and not really connected to me. And it's really part, at its root, the show is about many years, I suppose 28 or more than that, 30, God knows how many years of mental health problems and crises and severe depression I had, and about how all these problems all built up to a big sort of crisis point, and then how on one particular day last year, which was the 20th of March 2022, in a completely unexpected event that is still quite difficult to describe, although I talk about it in the show and describe it all my depression and mental health problems and all the anger inside me and everything, it all just dissolved away and disappeared. And then ever since then, my whole life has been completely miraculously transformed. So that's what the show's about. I did the very first performance, I think, as I said earlier in our discussions of the new show last night, and it was people found it very powerful and moving and interesting, as well as funny, of course. Obviously, I'm a comedian, so I've had to take these subjects which are quite dark, like depression and things like that, and make it funny. So it's that's what the show's about.
I'm very much looking forward to seeing it. Yeah, I think some of the best comedy is anchored in reality, isn't it? And it's certainly a thing I've done is one way of getting through difficult periods is to find the humor in them, no matter how dark it is, to sort of help process it and talk about it in different ways.
Yes. So in my case, I don't think it was a case of saying, it wasn't a way of processing it or anything, because I'd already processed everything. It was just, in fact, I'd never talked about my state of mind in any show, because I suppose I found it too painful. I didn't really want to. But then when it all just in this incredible event, just quite unexpectedly, just all got resolved, everything was just healed. I just thought, wow, that's an amazing moment. So I've got to talk about that in a show. And I also thought it'd be good to talk about the depression and all the bad times, but with the audience, with the fact that they know that there's a positive resolution to it. So it's a show that's quite hard hitting. It's quite bits of it are quite, it's powerful and sort of almost sort of distressing, but it's also happy. It's a happy show. So I just thought, yeah, I'm going to talk about all this.
Brilliant. That's really good. And just on a separate note, I'm really happy that you had that moment happen in your life, and hopefully you can find a lot more happiness moving forwards. And
well, thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my new show, and I'm excited. It was the first time last night I've ever really, apart from just a few friends who knew about it, it's the first time sort of in public and with an audience sharing it, and it seems very promising. People really, a lot of people in the audience came up to me afterwards who themselves had or do have or have had depression or mental health issues, and they said they were very sort of moved and by the way I described it, as well as I hope uplifted by the message of the show, as well as, of course, laughing on average around 5 times per minute, which is what I always aim for in my shows,
That's
as
always
well as
good.
laughing, because but it's an interesting because some people have said to me, well, how do you, it must have been difficult writing about such a subject. And it is a challenge in a way, talking about dark topics and making them funny.
Yeah.
But in a way, I think for a comedian, it's to make it, it's a gift to have, to know that your show is going to be about something, because so in a way, the easy bit in a way is working out how to make it funny, how to get the dark such topics and make them funny.
Yeah.
But the hard bit is having a show, knowing what your show is about. And I've had so many years in the past where I've had great shows, I think, but it's always been, I've really never really know what's going to go in it. Like, do I do this bit? Do I do that bit? Does that tie into this or that? And I think my last show, Swan Power, was a show that, unlike other shows in the past, it did have a narrative to it, and it did have it held together, I think, better than some of my shows years ago that were good shows, but there was a sort of arbitrariness to them. There's sort of there's this, and then there's something else and something else. There's no real reason why they go together, but they do. That just happens to be that show. So yeah, it was wonderful to know, this is what my show's going to be about. It was quite liberating as a writer.
And I suppose you said that some of these subjects you haven't spoken about on stage, but I think when you were going through it at the time, it would have been a lot harder to do that. Whereas now you're on the other side and you have perhaps a view of it in its entirety. It's easier to talk about it and dissect it a bit more and explore it in different ways.
Well, I think that's right. And I think there are bits in the show when I put over quite powerfully the sort of low states in which I was. And I think for me, as a performer, as a human being, I think I'd find that difficult to perform if I was still in that mode, or sometimes was still in that mode. So, because it's so kind of like when I'm actually performing those bits of the show, I sort of for a moment go back into that like an actor. I sort of become that for a moment, and I'm thinking, Christ, I'm glad that's not actually happening anymore. And I think for the audience, more importantly, for the audience, I think the fact they know that I'm not like that anymore allows them to watch me create those moments of loneliness, those terrible crises in my life. But I think the knowledge that it does improve allows them to actually, sort of. Otherwise, I think it might be almost too much to actually watch it.
It gives them permission to laugh, right? Because they know that you're okay with it and you're okay now. And
yes, I think it does. So it's an exciting show. I'm very excited about it.
Brilliant, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing it.
Well, that would be nice. Because I haven't met you before, have I?
You haven't, no.
No.
Outrageously.
Well, that would be nice.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. So I'll come and say hi.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
And also, I'm interested, like, how you choose your guests, like how did you think? Oh yes, I want Paul Foot on my show, and I also want David Arquette, and I also want Keanu Reeves.
Right, okay. So this is literally it. So it's coming up actually on the 22nd of May. It's going to be my show's 7-year anniversary.
Yeah.
And so very much so every interview that I work on, takes at least a week of my life. I genuinely will, well, not sometimes, if it's their first book or their first movie or whatever, won't take quite as long, but oftentimes I'm not just talking about their latest thing that's come out. I'm not just talking, as you know, about your latest tour. I've spoken about everything you've mostly ever done. And so if I'm going to spend so much time working on someone's things, I only want to do that if I've always enjoyed their stuff. If I've naturally just through osmosis been watching it anyway, as I have with you, it has to be people that I just love their body of work, and I want them to come on my show just to celebrate them and celebrate all the stuff they've done and the stuff they want to do, and maybe take us behind the scenes of what things were like, or see things from a different angle, or just stupid questions that I've had for 30 years in my head about a film that I've always just wanted to ask the director or whatever it is. So I just jam all that stuff together. And so my show is basically just a celebration of things that I like, and it can be an actor, a director, a comedian, musician, author, wrestler, a Guinness World Record holding eater of food, or whatever it is. And I now instantly have a Guinness World Record. I took part in a thing where over 300 people ate fish and chips simultaneously online, and I genuinely now have a Guinness World Record in that, thanks to somebody that I interviewed.
Wow. I would have a Guinness World Record myself, except for legal reasons, because it was 15 years ago now, but it was in Edinburgh at the festival. I thought, I wonder whether I could be the person to do the most performances in 24 hours.
Right.
And so then I came up with the idea of 24 performances in 24 hours. And it's actually 25 performances in the end. And it's actually not over 24 hours. It's kind of over 12 and a half hours.
Right.
Obviously, there's nothing going on in the night. But it starts at about midday, because I thought, where else can you do that? Only at the Edinburgh Festival, because there are shows going on all afternoon and all evening. So it starts at midday. And my rule was that they all have to be at least 5 minutes to make it like it can't just be like 30 seconds. You say that's a gig. At least 5 minutes. One of them was like an hour show. It's my own 1 hour show, and some of them were 10, 20 minutes. And I was rushing around, and it was a lot of logistics were involved. People would know that, like, I'd say, okay, I'll be turning up at around 5:10, and they'd know as soon as I arrived, they would just come straight off the stage and let me on, and all this sort of stuff. It was ever so exciting. And it went in the papers and everything, but I don't think it didn't go into the Guinness Book of Records, because they said that there were legal implications. The fact that I was rushing from one place to another, sort of in public, could mean that I might like knock into an old person and knock them over on the floor in my rush to get from one place to another.
Yeah.
Whereas ironically, if I just lain on a bed of nails, which is, you'd have thought, much more dangerous, but nevertheless, that's just my danger. And I can assign a disclaimer to say, I'm happy to lie on a bed of nails. But anyway, so for those legal reasons, it's not in the Guinness Book of Records. But I think, I don't know of any other comedian who's done 24 or 25 performances in one day. So
that seems like a lot, yeah.
It was an amazing experience. And it was obviously, I'm used to performing. It's just, it's quite something that's natural to me. I'm performing most nights of the week.
Yeah.
But to actually, and sometimes I'm doing more than one a night. But to actually doing it all after day, it did change. It did feel even more than it normally is, just totally natural. I was just used to being on stage. It was just like being on stage was what most of the day was. It was a really interesting and weird feeling.
Brilliant. I mean, I'd have a few Guinness World Record books, so I think I'm just going to manually write it in there.
Yeah, I think it's the best thing.
I think so. So speaking of which, actually, Edinburgh. So the next thing you're doing is, after the previews, you're taking your new show to Edinburgh, aren't you?
Yes. It's I love going to Edinburgh. It's 1 month all in one place. Stay in a flat, walk to my house, walk to the venue, do the show, walk home again. It's quite relentless. You can never really sort of unwind too much after a show, or I don't anyway, because there's another show the next night, and it has to be a great show. So it's yeah, I love it. Melbourne is the other time. The festival there is another time that's a bit similar because it goes on about the same length of time. It's about 3.5 weeks, and it's basically a show every night. And it's the same. You're in the same place for 3.5 weeks.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I love going to Edinburgh. I love also just going around on tour and around the different theatres as well. That's also fun. I love all the different parts of the sort of working year. They're all fun times.
When you don't have a day off, or well, I mean, I say that in Edinburgh, I know some people take a day off. It would be like not the 13th or whatever. What do you do to preserve your voice and not strain it and make sure you're not going out afterwards and shouting in a bar? Or do you do anything to prepare before? Are there any drinks you have or don't have, or exercises?
No, the only thing I do voice exercises, and I've had to actually seek help with the voice because I sometimes have strained the voice on stage, sometimes use too much power on stage, and too much sort of projection of the voice, and I have sometimes had difficulties. So I have had to have some lessons in basically loosening the larynx. It's all like lots of things that you'd have thought would be counterintuitive, like you'd have thought before a show you want to be like ready for the show like that, but actually doing yawning and stuff like that, lots of yawning and sort of opening up like that, and all like lazy gestures actually opens up the larynx, and so you get less strain. So yeah, I have to look after it because especially for a whole month, like in Melbourne, there was one night when, and I wasn't like having some big wild time most of the time, but you have to, even if you just go for a couple of drinks after the show, if you do that too many times, the sort of knock-on effect can be, and you see it so many times in Melbourne or in Edinburgh, towards the end of the festival, there'll be performers and can't speak very well, like that. So yeah, I have to look after the voice. So it's a mixture of exercises, steam, very good, breathing steam in, and also just looking after myself. Just that's what I mean about when I say that the Edinburgh Festival, it's relentless in the sense that you do a show and then you've got to be thinking, okay, I've got another show tomorrow. It's now, I've just finished my show and I've got now 23 hours until the next one. I need to sleep, I need to eat, so it's quite we talked about the creative writing process, and that's a real fun time, and this is a fun time in a different way because it's kind of a bit like being a thoroughbred racehorse. I'm just having to look after my body, make sure I eat well, make sure I sleep well, and that I'm just ready for the next show. It's a different mode to be in. It's fun. It's an exciting time up there.
And do you still find it as valuable as it used to be? I know that a lot of comedians, can get a massive debt. It's really expensive to stay up there in Edinburgh.
Yeah, I find it. Edinburgh has changed. Perhaps it's become bloated, and things have become more and more expensive, like accommodation and things like that. So I don't know what the effects of all that will be in the long term as it plays out. For me, it's definitely worthwhile to go there. I normally get good sized audiences. It's worth turning up. They're nice audiences. There are a good number of people come to see me because I've been there many years.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
I've got a following and people come and see me, and it's an intense process of just honing and perfecting a show because I'm just doing shows night after night after night, and then each day after the show, Aaron and I will sit there and we'll say, oh, maybe that line, get rid of that one, and maybe just tweak that one. So it's exciting as it's honed. It's a kind of honing. It's perfect, really, because I did my first show last night. Then I'll have previews May, June, July, but they'll be sort of 3 or 4 days apart. So there's always time to make changes, and then they're normally bigger changes at this point. And by the time I get to Edinburgh, it's into honing mode. It's just little things here and there, little changes here.
How do you remember those micro little notes if you're like, I'm going to change the way this sentence is structured or whatever it is, and you've just done that the night before? Is it just because it's in your short-term memory and then...
Yeah, it's short-term. I do seem to have a good memory for that, but I have bad memory. I think my brain has become adapted to being a comedian. I have bad memories for some things that don't seem important to me. I just forget. Like people's birthdays and things. I actually do sometimes remember, but things like that sometimes or other things that I just don't remember. But in terms of these sort of things, yeah, I mean, sometimes after, like when I was in Edinburgh last year and we were just perfecting the show Swan Power, it's particularly early on, in those early shows, there'd be like something like 40 notes from the show. And then about 30 of them would be things I'd have to, oh yes, remember to say that line slightly differently. Remember to give more of a pause before this. Actually reword this line. And there was just like so many notes. And I'd be like, oh my God. I'd be thinking how it was like my brain was like that. But anyway, I seem to have a good capacity for it because there'd be 30 notes and I'd get 28 of them correct anyway.
Brilliant.
And then by the end, it would calm down. So that once we'd, so it'd be 30 notes, then it'd be 28, 26, and by the end, it was just 2 or 3. It was easier. It's an ongoing process, writing and creating a show, because then one takes it on tour. There's differences. You do it in Edinburgh, then you take it on tour, and you find that those audiences are a bit different, and there's a load of more notes. And then, say, with my latest show, Swan Power, I took that to Australia, and the process of taking it to Australia means that lots of bits have to be changed because they have different references and different words for things sometimes there.
Yeah.
But that process can then end up changing the show. As it happens, that show's now been put to bed, and that's the end of it.
Right.
But if it were to carry on, as many of my shows have carried on after Australia, it's interesting. It changes the show. It improves it, because sometimes going to Australia, say, there might be something where I have to build in an explanation of something because they wouldn't necessarily understand it in the way a British audience would understand it. So there's an explanation comes in before a piece of humor,
right?
But then the explanation has to be funny because it's a comedy show.
Yeah.
And then you end up coming back to the UK and thinking, well, we've got to keep the explanation because that's actually improved the whole thing. So the process of taking a show, not just doing, Edinburgh, but taking it to all different places and different environments, or even taking it to Europe and performing it in countries like in Scandinavia, it always improves everything. It's like an ongoing process of changing and improving. It's a fascinating process.
Yeah, definitely. The core structure, the content and the subject matter will stay the same from the start to the finish mostly, but then the way you deliver it could massively change from the beginning to the end of the tour.
Well, it does, yes. And even at the end of the tour, the change from the beginning to the end is, when I think of Swan Power, I did it 126 times. And I remember that first one, which was actually in the middle of COVID, and it was all socially distanced and weird. And I remember being told I was the only person who didn't have to wear a mask in the room because I was performing. And there was like some law that I was allowed not to wear a mask because I was performing. But then it was still you may not go within 2 meters of anyone in the audience. You may not step ahead of this line. That's just weird to think that was all going on as well. Yes, when I look back at that first one in Corsham, 2.5 years or 3 years ago, how long ago it was, and then compare it to the show as it is now, or as it was, as it ended after the 126th performance, huge changes. And even on the 126th performance, there was still improvements going on. Like in that final show, as with all the other shows, I was still just coming up with a little something I'd say before a line, a little half line that would improve something. And I thought, I've just thought of that. It's the 126th show, and I've just thought of that. And Aaron was thinking of things that he was saying, I just realised that You could have said such and such, you know. So, yeah, so it's an amazing, yeah.
I guess it must keep it interesting for you as well, because a singer or someone like that may sing the same songs for 30 years, but even if you're touring something for a year, it keeps it fresh if you're still thinking about the material in different ways you can deliver it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it keeps it. Sometimes people say, "Oh, do you change it to keep it fresh?" And the answer is no, not really. It's always fresh anyway, because even if I'm saying exactly the same words as I've said before, I'm saying it to a new audience. It comes to life in that moment for me. So I don't need to change the words to sort of keep it fresh for me, as it were. But yes, there is the fact that I am living and breathing it every night does mean that new lines come up. So it's not keeping it fresh from me, as it were, but it's as if the show itself is an entity, and that show itself is still fresh. It is still changing. It's still alive.
Yeah, it's a thing you're not just delivering and not thinking about. It's a thing you're still actively engaged in and still gauging the responses of audiences and tuning and tweaking it as you go.
And that's the aim, is that it's always fresh. I remember doing a show in Australia. This was a few years ago, but this has happened many times. People have said this, but I remember this one particularly struck me. It must have been about 6 years ago. With, I think it was "'Tis a Pity She's a Piglet," and I was in Australia at that famous Spiegel tent, they call it, at the Arts Centre in Melbourne. And I remember doing a show, and it was another great show. I think, you know, it was an exciting performance of it. And then I remember someone coming up to me afterwards and saying, "Was that your first time doing the show?" Or something. And I said, "It's not my first time." I said it was my 167th time. And their mouth was like, "What?" That did not seem like the 167th time you'd done that. So I hope that's that's the aim, is to keep it fresh, to keep the performance and that is the aim. That's what I have to do. That's what a lot of performers do. They will. That is part of our skill as comedians, is to recreate the same moments over and over again. Some of which were written down, and then we just wrote it down and then said it, and then we keep saying it. Some of them will be things we had lived once. I mean, there are things in the show. Sometimes I've had shows where I got something wrong. I made a mistake in the show, and then said something funny. And then we say we've got to do that every time. So then I will always deliberately make a mistake on a bit, and then make the same comment word for word sometimes. But yeah, I remember someone saying to me, I mean, one doesn't want to talk about these things too much in a way. One doesn't want to give away the mystery of comedy. But this was someone, and I don't think I'm giving away anything here that. No, I think it's all right to say this, but someone was saying that they saw this video, and it was Jack Whitehall performing, and there was a thing when I think he said to someone, "Oh, is that your girlfriend or something?" And they said, "Oh, it's actually not my girlfriend, it's my mother." Anyway, and then they said, "Oh my God," they said, it's just explosive, and you can just see Jack Whitehall is like mortified, and it's like an OMG moment sort of thing. And I watched the video, and knowing what I do about comedy, I know he may even have said it deliberately in order to get. He might have thought, "I bet that's good," but I'll say, "Is it your mother?" or something. Or was it the other way? I can't remember. He said, "Is it your girlfriend?" but it was the mother, or "Is that your mother?" but it was the girlfriend. It doesn't matter, but he got it wrong. He may even have deliberately got it wrong, possibly, or he might have just got it wrong. But I know that will not be the first time something like that has happened to him. You know, that's all easily within the remit of any stand-up comedian. But what he did was to skillfully play out that moment, like, "Oh my God, I've got it wrong." And the audience are like, they're thinking, "Oh my God, what's Jack Whitehall thinking? Oh my God, he must be so embarrassed." And it's like a real big moment for the audience, and he's playing it out, and he's saying, "Oh my God," and whatever he says some stuff to them, and it's all like this big moment that plays out for 2 or 3 minutes as the audience like, "Wow, that's happened." But he's probably done that many times, And for all I know, because I don't know enough about that particular show he was doing, for all I know, he does the same every night, you know.
Yeah,
But
just looks for someone in the audience that fits that part of the joke. Yeah.
It might be that he looks for something that fit that joke, or it's just. But yeah, I mean, an example. I had a thing, a piece of comedy I did years ago, and it started off by talking about men don't like beer and they prefer to have a Malibu and Coke, and there was sort of some comedy I had about that. But then it became a thing that was all about why do you get gay babies and how do gay babies, how do you get them? And it was kind of addressing, it was all very silly. It was like a kind of pseudo-scientific kind of experiment I did when I like stroked a man's cheek to see whether or not what effect it had. And it was sort of pseudo-scientific. It was also a very funny bit, and it was quite powerful, and it dealt with sort of certain issues like homophobia and all sorts of issues were dealt with in the piece. And then and you know, I got every single reaction from men just saying, not bothered about it, mate, or to sometimes people even being a bit aggressive towards me, and all the way through to like men saying, well, I quite liked it actually, in a sort of jokey way, or even in a quite real way, like bringing some sort of bisexual side out of them. I'd seen all of those things, but I would obviously play it out to the audience, and like they'd be like, or sometimes I'd say, "God, oh, I wasn't expecting you to say you were turned on by me stroking your cheek," and I'd say, "Wow, this is like a real big moment," and the audience would be like, "Wow," but obviously I'd seen every possible sort of thing. I'd seen it, you know.
Yeah.
So that's part of our skill, I suppose, as comedians, to just do things like that. I don't know whether I should have said that because it's giving away the secrets behind the curtain.
That's all right.
Revealing the secrets. But anyway, yeah, that's. I'm sure enough people who go to comedy shows a lot, you know, audience members who go to comedy shows a lot, will pick up on these things. And
Yeah,
indeed, I have audience members who come to my shows more than once sometimes, and they will obviously then see, okay, so these things are the same every time, and that's different, and you know.
I think that's good too. And obviously, it's an extra thing for people to look out for when they're watching comedy, and shows the level of skill and might add more appreciation to the performance of what the person on stage is doing.
Yes.
Because, of course, even if the interaction with the audience members is planned, their reaction isn't necessarily. So even if you did the same thing 10 times in a row, as you've said, their reactions can be quite different. So they still might be different areas that you can improvise out of that as well.
Well, there are, yes. And I would, when I was doing that bit about the gay babies, that routine, there would be things which happened which had never happened quite before. They were a little bit different to anything I'd seen before. But I suppose the point I was making is I would play that out more. It's my job to play that out, to amplify it, to like, wow, this is different to before, rather than just sort of cynically, yeah, okay, you know. So that's what most comedians would do. They would play out those moments bigger.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
That's the comedy process. I love it. Obviously, one mostly wants to, as a comedian, expand your audience, get more people to come to see the show, more different people, I mean. But it's also, I do like it. It's a really lovely thing when I have some of my audience who will come back to the show. And that happened a few times just recently in Melbourne when I was performing every night in the same place. And I'd have sometimes people would say, I saw it last week and I wanted to come back, bring these people to see it. Yeah. And sometimes they'd say, and then I had one person who just said, I saw it last night and I came back again tonight. I just wanted to see it again.
Oh, wow.
Which is nice. You know, it's nice to get that sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
That level of engagement in the show.
It's really good. And as you say, as shows can morph so much as they progress, you could go and see the show in a preview, then go see one of the later shows in Edinburgh, then catch you again next year or something. And
yes.
while the structure may be the same, as you say, there could be quite different versions of it depending on the audience, what you come up with on the night and all that kind of thing as well.
Yes.
So basically, I think what we're saying is just get a ticket for every night of your show.
That did happen one time when I was in Adelaide, not this time, but a previous year. There were 2 people, and they came to I did 7 shows, and they came to all 7 of them. They just booked in advance. We're going to see all 7.
That's great. It's really good.
Yes.
And so I want to talk to you next about the charity fundraiser, Stand Up for Nerve Tumours UK at Union Chapel. What can you tell us about that? I assume you're not doing your entire show. Is it going to be like a 20-minute best of thing, or?
It's going to be, I don't actually know how long I'm doing. It's a charity show, of course, to raise money for that charity. It'll be one of these ones where there'll be a few different comedians. I doubt I'll be doing 20 minutes. It'll probably be 10 minutes each or something like that.
Yeah.
So it won't be my own full show. It's just another thing I like to do to support these charities. And it's another fun thing, gets me out of the house doing something. And
Absolutely.
I'll either be doing bits, or I might do a couple of bits from my new show, or I might be doing bits in the previous show or the current show, Swan Power. I don't like to call it the old show because it makes it sound stale. But anyway, it's still current, still happening. So yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be and in every show is a different practice for me and a different they all every show hones a different skill, a different thing, so this will be honing the sort of 5 or 10 minute performance skill, which is obviously important as well.
Very true. And can you tell me which comedians make you laugh? Who your
Sam Campbell in Australia. I love his comedy, and I love Tim Vine. Really silly, and just like those just silly puns and silly jokes. But there's something about him as a performer that I find irresistible. There's something so engaging about his sort of personality on stage.
Yeah.
So and Brian Gittins, or David Earl, but his character Brian Gittins, who when he performs live, I love that character. I adore it. I find it so funny and so so shambolic and amateurish, and deliberately, obviously, but it's just, I love it. Those are 3 of my favorites.
Everyone needs to check them out then. And can you tell me your favorite place you've ever performed, or your favorite performance you've ever had?
Well, there's so many, and in a way, they're all favorites because I go around all different places, and I never sort of think that, oh, I'm performing in this art centre here, I wish I was in so and so. I love all of them, but I suppose some of my highlights would be moments that were just big moments that I remember, like the first time I was ever in Melbourne, and I just got off the plane. Really, I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't know where I was. I knew where I was, literally, and I didn't really understand the sort of context of the sort of culture of where I was. And I performed that first time at the Palais Theatre, doing a TV recording. I think everyone had 5 or 8 minutes each, and I did my moist cake humor about when you have a slice of homemade cake, why do you always have to say it's moist? And that's still one of the things, like in Australia, that's the thing that the most people still talk about. And I just remember doing that. It was just such a seminal moment in my career. I'd just gone to Australia. At the time, I thought I'd probably never go back to Australia. So one-off, I don't think they'll take to me, but I'll go to Australia, just have a bit of fun. And that was a seminal moment. That whole time in Australia, that first time, because because then I remember doing my solo show. My solo show was in a 110-seater venue. And the first time I had 35 people, 35 really great people. They were like the 35 people in Melbourne who had to see me on my very first night there. And they were great. And then bit of word of mouth. Second night, there were 65 people. 2/3 full. Third night, word of mouth, it was sold out, and then the rest of it was just sold out after that, I think.
Brilliant.
And then by the end of it, I had to do a show. They had to put an extra show on for me in a 350-seater venue, and that was the biggest gig I'd ever played as a solo act at that time. Obviously, I'd performed to more people, in other contexts, but doing just my own show, and I had 350 people and I just thought, was like, wow. And then that thing, then later on in the run, that thing I'd recorded, the cake comedy, I remember watching that TV show, and I remember watching it, and I didn't come up at all. And I thought, it was right near the end of the show, and I sort of thought, oh, well, fair enough. I thought, well, maybe they just decided not to broadcast me on the show. Never mind, but it was nice to do it, sort of thing. And then the reason why I hadn't come up was because they kept me, I don't know whether it was actually last, but right near the end in like a real top billing, because it obviously gone so well. And I was like, and then the whole place, Australia just went kind of ballistic when that recording went out, and everyone went on and on about it. That was quite a seminal moment. And then I came back from Australia, all those things had happened. It was such an intense period. I then, after years and years of struggle on the club circuit, the comedy clubs in London, I'd always dreamed of becoming a success in the comedy clubs. And then I did become a success in the comedy clubs, but then retired 3 weeks later from having spent all those years trying to become a success, then retired from the comedy clubs because then I was too busy with all the other work, the theatre work.
Brilliant.
So yeah, that's the time. That was 12 years ago, and that was when the Buzzcocks was just, I'd already been on Buzzcocks, but that was when a lot of things were changing in my career at that time. So that's just a memory of a particular couple of different gigs there, and a particular time that was special for me. But yeah, loads of special places where I've performed all around the place. Always loved performing in London, in the big, in the Lowry, and Manchester and Salford, and lots of other theatres and places. It's just wonderful to go back to them all the time.
That's brilliant, and it's great that you've had that. You had such a special time in Australia. You kept going back since with every new show, which is really good. So obviously, just come back now. So then I imagine next year you'll go back with your new show again.
Yeah, so I'll be going back there, some stage with the new show, and and I go there. I've got friends there and so on, so I go there quite regularly now.
Ah, good.
I think someone in Australia said, "Is it your first time in Australia?" I said, "Not really. I think it's about my 23rd time in Australia." So I've been there a lot,
Wow, that's amazing. And can you tell me what you're working on next? You just focused on your show. Have you got any more TV stuff coming up, or are you just concentrating on the tour right now?
It's mainly focused on the show Dissolve at the moment. I mean, that is the top priority at the moment. It's obviously early days. Just did the first show last night, and there's more to come, more previews. That's the main thing at the moment. But there'll be other stuff going on in the autumn and so on. Yeah. So
have you ever considered writing a book?
I've thought about it. I might write a book sometime. It's I've just been too busy in a way with my live shows. But it's something I might do. I might produce some book or book of my art or something. There's all sorts of ideas.
You could write an autobiography and then illustrate it as well.
Yeah, I might do. Yes, it's definitely something that I might do one day. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't got any concrete plans for that one at the moment. It's just like there's so many things to do every day, and one never quite gets to the end of all the list of things that one would like to do. Make more videos for TikTok and all the other things, and make more podcasts and so on. But yes,
Well, if you do, I very much look forward to reading it.
Oh well, yes. Unless it's blank, I might do like a trick one where you buy it, but it's all wrapped in cellophane. But when you open it, it's all just blank pages.
I wouldn't mind that.
Oh well, I might do one like that then.
Yeah.
At least I've got one person will buy one. I was going to say I'll sign it for you, but I won't sign it because to sign it, I'd have to take off the cellophane and open it up, and then you'll see that it's blank. You might not buy it.
Could you sign it, but sign it in such a way that you also tell me your life story in said signature?
Yes, I will write. In fact, what I'll do is I'll write a book specifically for you, Sarah.
Please,
Just write. When I say write a book, I mean literally get a book and write it out for you, a handwritten one.
Yeah, just after a show, just dear Sarah. So I was born in the
On this
afternoon.
day.
Just do that, and there's a big queue behind me.
Yes.
And I want a book written as well. And then you forget what you've written in the middle, and you have to see it to have a look at my one to do the. So I have to stand there and wait for you to finish.
Yeah, I'd need to keep your book with me at all times to write it into all the other books to sell.
If you improvised a perfect book that first time, you'd need it, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's wasted effort.
Yeah. So yeah, I will. I'll copy the book. I'll photocopy it. Be quicker.
Yeah, I could just read it to people.
Oh yeah, you can read it out to people. That saves me.
I literally don't. Yeah, they can just phone me, and I'll just. Oh, what bit were we at? Chapter 18. Okay, let's go.
The Sarah O'Connell show will just be you reading my book.
Yeah, I mean that's what that's been building up to, pretty much.
Yes.
How else do I thank you for the joint birthday party?
Well, of course, yes.
People used to phone up to get horoscopes and things in the 90s. Now you can phone up to have a live reading of your new book.
Yeah. It's just me reading my book.
Yeah. I think that sounds good.
It's the Paulfoot. Well, it could just be me just sitting. It's just Paulfoot in his home. The Paulfoot live cast.
Yeah.
It's me making a sandwich.
I've had a bit of a preview of that today, and I've quite enjoyed it so far.
Yeah, you've seen a bit of my life sitting here in my. I don't know what I need to give a name to this. I can't just keep calling it the loft. It's not the loft anymore. It's a room. I've had it made into a room.
The Elephant Sanctuary.
Yeah. Oh, have you seen the elephant?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can see the elephant there. I got that. There's an elephant chair with all elephants on it, and an elephant table carved out of one piece of wood with all elephants. It's very elaborate. I've got murals. I've got a safari mural on one end of the wall and an octopus mural on the other side of the wall. 9 octopuses. What?
Making broth.
Not actually. They're 9 octopus. They should be making a broth, but they're a bit busy because they're 9 octopuses holding tentacles with each other. So they're all touching all the other 8 octopuses. So they don't have time to make a broth. They haven't got any. If I'd done 9 octopus, if I'd done 12 octopus, no. If I'd done 5 octopuses holding hands with each other, then they'd have each had 4 tentacles left over, and then they could have made a broth.
Something to plan for the future, perhaps.
Yeah, I'll make a picture. I'll change the picture, put an extra octopus in, something like that. Yes,
it's worth doing.
That's a good point. If you have more than 9 octopuses, they can't all hold hands with each other. They have to choose which ones are their favorites. And if you have fewer than 9 octopuses, they will have at least 1 tentacle free each, which they can use to make broth or do other tasks.
And then, so once you have an official name for your skyloft, then you can have like a grand opening. And...
Yeah, I think I need to get a name for it, and then I'll have an opening. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do.
A little plaque.
Yeah, I'll get a plaque on it. Yeah.
Can you tell me about the Guild of Paulfoot Connoisseurs, for which I am a member, and your secret shows for which we cannot speak?
Well, the secret, the Guild of Paulfoot Connoisseurs, I just thought, well, don't have fans. They're not fans. They're not like throwing their knickers on stage. They're connoisseurs of my comedy. So that's why I called my I call it secret society, but it's not that secret. It's many thousands of people in it. But I call it the Guild of Paulfoot Connoisseurs. And then the people who are in London or near London, they can be invited to my secret shows, which are secret because they're not listed on any like newspaper or anything, or they're just only on my website, and you have to have a special password in order to get in to book your tickets. And they're limited to about 36 or 38 people each show. And at the moment, I'm doing my new show Dissolve in them, but at other times I just make up improvise all sorts of nonsense and make up silly things for about 2 hours. in front of my choicest connoisseurs, and it's a great fun. They're different to any other sort of show. In fact, I have some people who come to the secret shows and they refuse to come to my actual theatre shows, like my proper shows.
Yeah.
Like, they say, "Oh no, we like it. We're just when you're roaming around doing your silly making stuff up." So yeah, it's like a different muscle being flexed to my theatre shows, comedic muscle. Yeah, they're fun.
So everyone needs to get to your website, which I believe is paulfoot.tv, and then sign up, become a member, and then find out about all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's it. Paulfoot.tv, that's the one.
It's because I've been there. Enjoyed the artwork. Had a bit of a look around.
Quite a nice website. I had it all invented for me in days when perhaps websites were a bit more important than they are now. Now it's a bit more kind of Instagram and all that. But yeah, it's a nice website. I'm very pleased with it.
And so my final question, have you got any messages for people watching the Sarah O'Connell show and your fans around the world?
Well, please continue to watch the Sarah O'Connell show. And I like the fact it's called show, not podcast or interview or Sarah O'Connell in conversation. The Sarah O'Connell show, because it is a show. And who knows who your next person will be, Sarah, and who knows what goes on and how you decide. I noticed you had Joe Lycett on, and I watched a bit of that one, and then you said he's the person who's been on the most. He's been on 5 times.
Well, he's currently tying with Catherine Ryan. They're both on 5.
They're both on 5. I've only been on 1 time.
So far. But you have been on, in fairness, for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I've been on for 2.5 hours. I've done like extra. So I've done probably about 5 shows in one, there.
Yeah.
But so who knows? My message to the viewer is, who knows what's going through Sarah O'Connell's mind? Why has she had Joe Lycett and Catherine Ryan 5 times, and I've only been on 1 time? After 7 long years, I've been on for the first time, but then I went on for 2.5 hours.
You did.
Why? What's going on in Sarah O'Connell's mind? Will it be David Arquette next? Will it be Keanu Reeves? Who's going to be on next? Who knows? Who knows what Sarah O'Connell will come up with next?
Well, I mean, for one, I know. So there's that.
Oh, you know.
I know, yeah.
But you're the only person who knows. You and your friends.
Well, me and people that subscribe to my Patreon might have a bit of an idea as well.
People who subscribe, the subscribers, they know.
Oh, yeah, they know, yeah.
Yeah. The regulars, they know.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I'm not in, I've been on for 2.5 hours, but I'm not in your inner circle of confidants who know these things. I don't know.
Well, actually, you kind of are now. So, in fact, when I see you, when I see you, you get one of these.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a fridge magnet, so you can put it on your fridge or your toaster or anything metallic.
Oh, I'll put it on my I'll put it on my fridge and then stick important things in.
Yeah.
On it.
So then every time you go and get a snack, you can think, watch an episode of the Sarah O'Connell show.
Yeah, I will.
That's what I do. It reminds me to keep making it.
Yeah, so that's what my message to your viewers is, you probably already know what's next, but I don't. So do let me know.
Exactly.
That's my message.
So, Paul, thank you so much for coming on my show today. I've really had a lot of fun chatting to you.
Thanks, Sarah. It was really fun to be on. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. You're welcome back anytime, so we can get you to 2, 3, and 4. It's going to get very competitive.
Yes, I'll be back.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can't. I mean, it's not my place to say that, but I'd like to be back.
Good.
You decide, Sarah O'Connell. You decide. It's your show. You know everything.
Well, that's it. And so this is the thing. You make some more stuff, come back, talk about your new stuff. You can speak about your book. And obviously I'll be there when you do your grand opening of your Elephant Sky Lounge. Oh, yes. Excellent. Yes. Maybe we'll have a show from there. I think we should. Not from here, but like a live. Yeah, that's a good idea. We can schedule all this stuff. Yes. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then say thank you again. And thank you to everybody watching at home. Be sure to share, subscribe, give this video a big thumbs up and leave lots of lovely comments. I'll see you all again soon for another episode of The Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye.
See you soon. Bye, Sarah.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
That was amazing.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Sarah.
much. I love that. That was a lot of
That's
fun.
real fun.